Very good, thank you. Commissioner Eggenberger, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner Cruz. Here. Commissioner Eggenberger. Here. Commissioner Foster. Here. Commissioner Janowski.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Singh.
He is excused.
Commissioner Watkins.
Here.
Commissioner Weber.
Here.
And Chairperson Zuber.
Here. And let the record reflect that we have Patrick Sloan and Aaron Schluto here from staff, and Courtney Agrusa, our township consultant, is here. Thank you. Yeah, township attorney consultant is here as well. First item on our agenda is approval of the minutes of August 12th. If I could just make a small correction, whoops. I don't think it really matters, but I think in the section about Cherry Hill and Beck rezoning, I don't think I was asking about widening the stub road. That's shortly after Mike Knowles started talking about the project. There's a statement that says, I asked if there were plans to widen the stub road. I think I just asked about the stub road and whether it would be connected to any future development. So just a point of clarification. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes with that amendment?
So moved with the
Sorry, folks.
So moved with the change noted by the Chairman Zuber.
We have support? Support. Okay, I hear a motion by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Lee. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Awesome. Patrick, I know we've received a lot of communications about the hearing tonight. You sent some things very late this evening, or very late this afternoon, early evening. Oh, sorry, thank you. Being told that I skipped an item. The acceptance of the agenda for the evening. So could I hear a motion for that?
Motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Support. All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Watkins and support by Commissioner Lee to approve the agenda as written tonight. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you for moving the microphones down. Very good. So now let's talk about communications.
Sure. Today we received, throughout the last few days, we've received several communications about a number of things on the agenda. And today we forwarded those communications to the Planning Commission in 3 separate emails. One was this morning, one was later this afternoon, and the third was just before the meeting this evening. So any questions about those communications during the course of the meeting we can discuss.
Thank you very much. All right. We have time for public comment at this point, and this is for anybody wishing to speak about anything besides what's on our agenda tonight. So if you're here to talk about a project that's on our agenda, you will be offered that opportunity. If it is a public hearing, you will be offered the opportunity to speak about it during the public hearing section, which is, let me just outline what projects those are. The first item on the public hearing agenda is the Muslim Educational Community Center of America, which also known as MECCA, the rezoning. Canton Corners - Ford Road LLC rezoning, Papaya Fruit Market, and Top Canton LLC. So if you're here to speak on behalf of or against any of those projects, please hold your thoughts until we get to those items on the agenda. If you have any general comments or anything to talk about that is not on our public hearing agenda, please feel free to come forward at this time.
And just for clarification, that would include our last 2 agenda items for Country Plaza Crossing.
Thank you.
And Cherry Hill Village Town Square Park.
Okay, so if you want to talk about those things, now is your chance. All right, I guess we can move into the public hearing section. Our first item, as I mentioned a moment ago, is item 031-RZ-8298, the Muslim Educational Community Center of America, also known as MECCA, rezoning. We're considering rezoning for parcel number 031-99-0007-000 6200 North Ridge Road from RR, which is rural residential, to R1, single-family residential. The property is located on the east side of North Ridge between Ford Road and Hanford Road. The proposed rezoning to, this is the proposed rezoning is to allow for a future special land use application for a private school and childcare facility. And I will note, and Patrick will probably mention this in his presentation, that we have received many, many letters about this project. So, Patrick, please tell us more.
Sure, thank you. The application is a proposal to rezone a parcel of property at 6200 North Ridge Road, which is on the east side of North Ridge Road between Ford and Hanford Road, from rural residential to R1 single-family residential. And this parcel is displayed on the screen with the aerial underlaid. And the purpose for the rezoning is in conjunction with another application that we're in the process of reviewing. I'll start with the current zoning of the property, which is RR Rural Residential. There's currently a special land use application for a religious institution on the subject property under the current RR zoning district. Religious land uses are special land uses in both the RR and the R1 zoning district. So with regard to the proposed religious land use for which there's a special land use application, there's no distinctions between the two districts when it comes to the proposed use. And the special land use that I note is not on tonight's agenda. Staff is still in the process of reviewing the plans. We've met with the applicants in terms of some of the latest things going on with the plans. And as is typical with site plans and special land use applications, there's a series of staff meetings and internal reviews that take place before an application is ready for Planning Commission review. So staff is in the process of working through those application materials for that proposed special land use with the applicant. And I can talk a little bit about that later on in the presentation in terms of what is specifically proposed and where we are in the process with that application. During the course of the special land use application, the applicant had noted that at some point in the future, they may want to include a religious school and a daycare at the facility. And in reviewing that future proposal in conjunction with the special land use, we note that schools and childcare facilities are not listed as special land uses in rural residential. They are, however, listed as special land uses in the R1 single-family residential district. And so we looked at the master plan and the future land use map, which recommends an R1 zoning and a residential density not to exceed 1 dwelling unit per acre. And we recommended to the applicant that if at some point in the future they want to make an application for a school or a daycare, our recommendation would be to apply for a rezoning to the R1 district. So that's just a short summary of the background of those two separate applications. And we'll focus obviously on the rezoning application, but as it relates to the site and some of the criteria of rezoning, we do have the special land use plans included with the packet of materials given to the Planning Commission to give a little bit of context in terms of what the overall proposal is for the site. The proposal is for a generic rezoning for an RR to an R1 district. It's not a conditional rezoning. So any of the materials, the application materials like the plans, things like that, they're for illustrative purposes only, and they're not conditional with a rezoning. So if there is action on the rezoning, whether it's to approve the rezoning, to not approve the rezoning, to table it, that would not be related to a specific plan itself. The decisions on the plan would come in the future through a future special land use application. The action that is taken for the rezoning is based on the criteria of the zoning ordinance, which I'll get into throughout the staff report here, and some of which also relates to the special land use, as we'll discuss, especially as it relates to traffic. So a little bit about the site. The site is about 11.5 acres, and it includes a single-family residence on the west side. The east side of the site, I'll zoom in on it so we can see a little bit better. The east side of the site is heavily wooded. It includes Fellows Creek, and Fellows Creek runs west to east on the parcels to the north, and then it turns southward through the middle of the parcel. Additionally, there's a tributary to the south branch of Fellows Creek that runs from the northeastern corner westward to converge with Fellows Creek on the parcel itself. I'll pull up an aerial photo from our database here just to kind of illustrate how the site and the water flows through it. So the proposed site is here highlighted in turquoise, and Fellows Creek, it runs north of the subject property. The blue part, you can barely see it through the aerial photos, but it's there. That's just a general line of the creek itself. The purple lines there are the estimated floodplain area. Any specific location of floodplain, it's very site-specific. It's something that would be on the detailed drawings. This is just to illustrate where the creek goes through the site, both as it runs from north to south and when it converges with the other branch and continues to run south. And so that's the existing location of the creek. As we'll see in the special land use plans that we'll show in a bit here, the development is concentrated on the western side of the site, and a lot of the wooded area, the floodplains, and the eastern part of the site are proposed to be preserved based on those plans. So that's just one item that we wanted to share there, and we can refer back to it during our discussions. Going back to the special land use application, if a special land use is approved for a religious institution on the site, the applicant would intend at some point to apply for a school and daycare facility in the future as a special land use if the rezoning is successful. Looking at some of the review considerations of section 27.06 D4 of the zoning ordinance, that part of the zoning ordinance consists of 10 different criteria that have to be evaluated when deciding whether or not to grant a rezoning. And a lot of these criteria are general, and they take into account all uses in the proposed zoning district, not just one individual use. So for example, if it was a residential developer that came in and wanted to rezone the site so that they could build a series of 1-acre lots, we would look at that rezoning in the context of the land use proposal, but we would also have to think about all other land uses in the R1 district that could be proposed. So the first criteria is whether the proposed amendment is in accordance with the basic intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. The rezoning application that's proposed requires a plot plan that includes data about the site. Again, the plot plan is just illustrative. It's just an illustration of what could be developed on the site if the rezoning was approved and if a special land use was approved to that effect. It doesn't mean that it's an approval of a site plan, either expressed or implied. We find that the proposed rezoning, just in general, meets the criteria of the zoning ordinance based on what the master plan recommends, as well as some of the items that are illustrated on the plan that show how the site can comply with the ordinance. At this point, I'll go into a little bit more information about just a layout of the plan itself. And what I'll focus on is there's an aerial photo with the plan overlaid. So as we previously noted that there's Ridge Road on the west side. Most of the proposed development, should the special land use application be approved and continue, would be located on the west part of the site, with the middle and eastern parts of the site where there's floodplain, the creek heavily wooded, that would be proposed to be preserved. So the layout plan regarding a rezoning is helpful because we can look at points of access, we can look at potential zoning compliance, and because we've already started our review of the special land use plan, we can provide more comments than in most cases of a rezoning where we don't have this level of detail. There are 2 points of access that are illustrated, proposed from North Ridge. Site access is subject to change based on a traffic impact study. The applicant has submitted a traffic impact study, and at this point, I'll talk a little bit about that, where the traffic impact study still needs some revisions to it. Notably, the traffic impact study had overlaid the use's peak time with the AM and PM existing peak times. And as proposed, the religious institution, special land use, has a different peak time than the AM and PM peak hour. So the applicant is currently in the process of making some updates to the traffic impact study that relates to the specific use itself in terms of when its peak times of traffic would be. In this case, it would be typically on Fridays from late morning to early afternoon, mostly outside of those AM and PM peaks. So those are items that will be forthcoming, and at that point, we'll have some determinations both with township staff and Wayne County whether the points of access on Ridge Road are feasible. And some of it will get into sloping and elevations of the road itself as well as the points of access. The conceptual plan shows a proposed layout for stormwater management. It's shown on the west side of the development part of the site, and it's proposed to be an underground stormwater detention system. The stormwater management is under the jurisdiction of Wayne County, so Wayne County would determine whether any stormwater management system complies with its requirements. And the Fellows Creek and an outlet to that would be under the jurisdiction of Wayne County. Finally, with regard to utilities, there are available utilities in the area. There's existing water main along the east side of North Ridge Road, and there's an existing sewer main along the east side of North Ridge that's about 340 feet south of the site. And the applicant would propose to extend the sewer main northward to access the site. The part of Ridge Road that it fronts, it's currently paved asphalt with one lane in each direction. And as illustrated on the site, and again, it is subject to change, but because it's on the plan, we'll talk about it, is on the conceptual plan and in their special land use plan, the applicants show a dedicated right turn lane northbound on Ridge Road as an entry into the site. Also, the applicant illustrates a southbound left turn dedicated turn lane into the site and a passing lane southbound to the west of that lane. So again, Ridge Road, because it's under the jurisdiction of Wayne County, it's subject to county review both for any road work in the right of way as well as any issues with elevations, natural features, things of that nature. Another criteria, the second is the amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan of the township? The comprehensive plan of the township classifies this site as very low density residential, which recommends a density of 1 dwelling unit per acre. The subject property has been classified as low density residential on the map since 1994. So it's currently been pretty consistent in terms of its recommendation for the 1 unit per acre density. The third criteria for rezoning is whether conditions have changed since the zoning ordinance was adopted, or was there a mistake in the zoning ordinance? In this case, there's no mistake. Rarely is there a mistake that justifies a rezoning or a zoning ordinance amendment, but conditions have changed since the zoning ordinance was adopted in 1990. Many areas of the township, including in this region, there has been pressure and demand for residential development, but other types of development as well, like institutional uses, school uses, and in this case, religious land uses. And it's not just this area of the township, it's many areas of the township as Canton has grown. So this is a proposed application for both a rezoning and, as a background, the special land use are in response to changed conditions in the township. There have been a number of properties that have been rezoned in this area over the last several years to allow for a number of different uses, mostly residential, but some non-residential as well. The fourth criteria of rezoning is, will the amendment correct an inequitable situation created by the ordinance rather than grant special privileges? When we look at special privileges, we look at whether a rezoning would grant something to someone that is against the master plan that would be out of line of the surrounding area or something that the master plan recommends. In this case, there's a proposal to rezone the subject site to R1, which is similar to a lot of other districts in the area and similar to the overall region. The surrounding zoning, there is current RR zoning located directly north, the properties that abut both Hanford Road and Ridge Road, and property to the south directly is zoned RR. But properties to the east are zoned R2, single family residential, in Fellows Creek Estates subdivision, and that density is about 2 units per acre. And to the west, there's an R1 zone for the ZB West nature area. Now, that's a nature preserve that would be undeveloped, but it's in an R1 zone, and there are a number of properties in the area that are R1 or R2. So the rezoning itself would, it wouldn't be anything that's granting special privileges because there have been many properties in the area that have been rezoned to R1 under similar circumstances, regardless of specific land use. The fifth is whether the amendment will result in unlawful exclusionary zoning. In this case, there are no exclusionary zoning factors, so the fifth item is either met or not applicable. The sixth criteria is, will the amendment set an inappropriate precedent resulting in the need to correct future planning mistakes? We find that the amendment will not set an inappropriate precedent because it is consistent with the comprehensive plan policies and future land use map. And the subject parcel is adjacent to R2 zone properties to the east and R1 zone properties to the west. And over the last several decades, other properties in the very low density residential future land use class have been rezoned to R1. The seventh criteria is, if a rezoning is requested, is the proposed zoning consistent with the existing land uses of surrounding property? And again, we find that based on the zoning district itself, it is adjacent to the R2 district to the east, the R1 properties to the west. There are RR zone properties to the north and south, and there are many areas of the township where the RR district abuts the R1 district or the R2 district and other districts. There also is at least one other area of the township where there's an established religious land use in an RR district. That is at the northwest corner of Beck and Warren Road, Faith Baptist Church. That is on a paved county road, and that's in an RR zoning district, and it was established through a special land use on that site. So that the rezoning itself, I'm looking at adjacent properties, but with the use itself in terms of compatibility and adjacency of uses, that's just one example. The eighth criteria is, if a rezoning is requested, could all requirements in the proposed zoning class be complied with on the subject property? This is a general finding. If the property is zoned R1, the minimum lot area is 1 acre. The minimum lot width is 150 feet. The plans submitted show compliance with the minimum front yard setback of 40 feet, side yard setbacks of 20 feet, and rear yard setback of 50 feet. On a parcel that's 11.5 acres in size, it's very easy to meet the standards of the R1 district, so this criteria is met. There are some standards of the zoning ordinance that we would have to look at specifically related to a use or any specific development. So a finding for this eighth criteria does not necessarily mean that a future plan or this plan that's on the screen would be approved. It's just a statement of whether compliance is possible so that we're not potentially creating a zoning for a site that can't be developed either without variances or some other exceptions. The ninth criteria is, if a rezoning is requested, is the proposed zoning consistent with trends in land development in the general vicinity? We've addressed this in other statements in our report, so I'll try not to be redundant. But there are many areas of Canton that have the R1, the R2, and RR properties adjacent to each other, and these districts are generally compatible with each other. The compatibility of specific uses, whether they're religious institutions, schools, daycares, or any use under the R1 or RR district, those are separate evaluations that are made during the special land use review. And the reason we have special land uses is that when we look at special land uses, we look a lot closer at a specific use and its impact on the surrounding area and the adjacent areas. And those evaluations are made during the special land use review. So just because we make a finding here that there's general consistency, it's not necessarily a finding related to the special land use, because as we're still working through the application process with the applicants and with township staff, we're not yet ready to make affirmative findings when it comes to those special land uses. The final criteria is number 10. If a rezoning is requested, what is the impact on township infrastructure? On the water and sewer, we've previously noted where the water and sewer lines are. In our future land use, or in our comprehensive plan, there is a synchronous relationship between our comprehensive plan and our water and sewer master plan. Whenever there's a new use or an intensity of use, oftentimes there's an evaluation from our engineering services division to make sure that there's sufficient water and sewer capacity. So that's an evaluation that's done oftentimes when there's a specific use, but in other cases, it's been evaluated during rezonings. For the impact on roads, North Ridge Road is paved and under the jurisdiction of Wayne County. There are 2 access points that are proposed on this plan. The site access is subject to change based on the traffic impact study and the design layout review by staff. This is currently under review concurrent with the special land use process, and some of the items that are noted in our report where there are additional questions on the traffic impact study. We're still awaiting information on that. So to some degree, we can't make affirmative findings on the traffic impact study as it relates to what's been submitted, just because staff as well as Wade Trim, our traffic engineering consultant, have looked at the study and have had follow-up questions. We've been working with the applicant on that. So the applicant's working on updating the traffic impact study to include the data that we've been discussing. And once that's submitted, then we'll review that in conjunction with that separate special land use plan. So as it relates to the rezoning, that's where we are in terms of the traffic impact study. With relation to the road, there is access onto a paved road, but in terms of any uses impact on the road, we're still working through that as we get more details on the traffic study. For the impact on natural features, we've noted the areas where the creeks are and where the woodlands are, as well as the floodplains. Those are areas that are heavily vegetated. The proposed development's concentrated on the west half of the site, so there will be less an impact on those natural areas than if it were a development that went farther north or west, or if it showed any impact in the floodplains, which the layout here doesn't show any impact on the floodplains that are noted on the map. The plans illustrate the floodplains and wetlands being preserved, and we're continuing to coordinate the site plan review comments with the applicant to minimize any tree removal. So those are discussions that are still ongoing, that in the context of special land use review, we're working with the applicant to minimize impacts on natural features. So we're probably a little bit more in depth on findings than we would be in a typical rezoning, but if we have plans that are available in conjunction with the rezoning, we'd like to share them and try to make findings in the context of the rezoning. And then finally, with stormwater management, stormwater management's under the jurisdiction of Wayne County, and that's in the process of being reviewed in conjunction with the special land use application. So if we have any findings or review letters from Wayne County, we'll share those with the Planning Commission at that time. The last thing that I do want to note is about some of the comments that we had received through email on the application. I think we've received over 100 comments that have been emailed, and to my knowledge, I think I've replied to every one of the email respondents just to let them know that we received the comment and that we would be forwarding those to the Planning Commission. So all of the email respondents that have sent emails to me, I've responded to them each individually, and I've shared their emails with the Planning Commission. Some of the comments are very similar to each other. So some of them relate to site plan review, special land use review, but there are some that I would like to discuss here in terms of how it may relate to the rezoning and the plan that's been submitted. With the impact on traffic, as I had previously stated, those discussions and reviews are ongoing. So in terms of concerns with traffic impact on Ridge Road, Ford Road, and the intersection of Ford and Ridge, those are concerns that we've shared with the applicant in our reviews, as well as our traffic engineering consultant, Wade Trim, in their review. So those are concerns that we've raised, and we're waiting on more information regarding the traffic study. So those are comments that, even though it's something that we're still working on, those are comments that we hear, and we understand the concerns. Some of the other comments are pedestrian access, and before Ridge Road was paved, it was gravel and had wide shoulders, and in recent years, when it's been paved, that's upgraded level of service for vehicles. It's paved, it's smooth now, there's not as much dust, it's more durable, but there are curbs and they're raised curbs. So any kind of pedestrian shoulder, gravel shoulder, that's been eliminated. So through the course of repaving or paving Ridge Road, and this took place before the applicant was involved, and the decision to pave Ridge Road was not made or done by the applicant. But that paving, it did take away the gravel shoulder, and by having the paved road, the raised curb, and right outside the raised curb is grass. So it made it more difficult for pedestrians. And I know because I run that area of the township frequently. And before this stretch was paved, I spent quite a bit of time running on this part of Ridge Road. I've marathon trained on Ridge Road. But since it's been paved, I agree, it's gotten a lot more difficult because you're running into a paved road in a lane, which is not comfortable, or you're on the other side of the curb on the grass, which many of the residents would consider that their lawn, which also adds a level of discomfort. So I understand the limitations on pedestrian access, and those are some existing conditions along Ridge Road that exist today that took place a few years ago. With respect to what's proposed in the plan, the applicant is proposing sidewalk along their frontage. So they are proposing some upgrades to the system there, the pedestrian system, not just on Ridge Road, but anywhere in the township whenever there's development, new development or redevelopment, and there's sidewalk put in. A lot of the adjacent sites don't yet have sidewalks, and those create gaps. That's just a natural circumstance of anything we do anywhere in the township. So there are already gaps. Farther to the south there on the screen in the Park West Apartments, there's a sidewalk termination, so that creates a gap. If the subject site is developed and there's a sidewalk built, that will help pedestrian access, but there will effectively be a gap that remains there. So in some ways with a development, pedestrian access gets better, but the current circumstances that we're working under are challenging for pedestrians along that stretch of Ridge Road. There have been comments from the public regarding blind spots on the road, the topography, specifically the intersection of Hanford Road and Ridge Road, and anything related to elevations, topography, vertical alignments. Because it's a county road, those are issues that would have to be worked through with Wayne County in terms of what they would allow in terms of access, what they would permit, and any kind of mitigating factors that they would require based on any alignment circumstances. So we'll pass those comments forward to Wayne County regarding some of the concerns with vertical alignment and slope. And finally, there were some comments that were sent related to the religious land use. And as I previously stated that because it's a rezoning, we consider all land uses. And any kind of findings or analysis that we do on a religious land use, that would be done during special land use review, not during a rezoning review, even though it's a projected use. But the projected uses in this case are not necessarily the religious land uses because the RR district allows them as special land uses. In this case, those prospective uses are a daycare and a school in conjunction with that. So that's just to state that even though the proposal for special land use is a religious land use, there's not any findings related to that use that are made during rezoning. That's made during special land use. And even during special land use, when we look at a religious land use, federal law requires that we look at them no different than any other non-religious assembly uses. So if it's a banquet hall, a meeting hall, a country club or some other place of non-commercial or commercial assembly, we're required to review religious land uses the same way. So when it comes to religious land uses, we take a step back and look at this as more of a general assembly type of use, and we look at the impacts that we hear about like traffic, stormwater management, pedestrian access, those types of things that would come with any other assembly-related land use. So I just wanted to note that in terms of when we eventually have a special land use public hearing on the proposed special land use application, at that time we can get a little bit more in depth in terms of staff's findings in that regard with traffic and stormwater management, pedestrian access, and all those criteria that are noted in the zoning ordinance. So with that, staff's recommendation based on the rezoning criteria, as we noted in our staff report, is approval. However, if the Planning Commission would like additional information at this time regarding the traffic impact study as we noted in our staff report, or any other information related to the rezoning review criteria, then our recommendation would be to postpone action on the application pending review and receipt of that additional information so that staff and consultants can review before coming back to the Planning Commission. So with that, we've provided two separate motions for your consideration. The second motion, it's a draft motion for postponement, and it just mentions traffic impact study. If it's the desire of the Planning Commission to postpone for any other items or criteria or information needed, that can be added on to the motion as it's stated here. So that concludes our staff comments, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. I know that there are some strong feelings about this project based on the letters that we've received. So we are going to take public comment, but I just want to remind everyone that we want everybody to be civil, please. And each person can speak for 3 minutes. Once you're up at the podium, we will time you, and we will stop you at 3 minutes. And if you have a comment that someone has already made, please know that we are listening, and we ask that you not repeat other people's comments, and just, you know, if somebody has already made your point, please understand that we have heard it. I want to also point out, we have a very long agenda this evening, so we anticipate being here quite late. So we ask you to please be brief in your comments, and I would appreciate that respect. Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
And the only thing, I'm sorry, I would add is sometimes during public hearings, there are questions directed at staff. And those 3 minutes, those are for the public and the respondents. So there may be a question directed at staff where during public comment, that's not the best time for us to provide a Q&A session just because of the time, and it's disruptive to the overall public comment. But we do hear the questions, we take them down, and we either do follow up later in the meeting if we can, and if not, maybe offline through email or some other. So if someone gives their signs in, we can always reach out, and they can reach out to us offline as well.
Thank you for clarifying that, Patrick.
Madam Chairman, let people know that if there's a group of people that are speaking, if they have one representative that's speaking on their behalf, that way maybe we'll maximize the
Yeah.
efficiency of our time here.
Yes, if you are representing a group, you have 5 minutes to speak, but not everybody can represent that group. We get one person from each group can speak for 5 minutes, and then that's it. We can't hear everybody who says they're with a group for 5 minutes, so thank you. Thank you for, I'm sorry, the public hearing is not open yet, so give us a moment, and we will recognize people to speak.
The other thing we would ask is when you come up to speak, please make sure you state clearly your name and where you're
Address.
from, your address, and please speak into the microphone because it's imperative that we get this recorded properly.
Correct, thank you. Yeah.
So we have not opened the public hearing yet. We'll get to you in a minute.
Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion, Madam Chair.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Watkins and support by Commissioner Weber. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the public hearing is open. Is the project sponsor here? Would you like to speak about the project, sir?
Good evening.
Okay.
Thank you for having us here today, and thank you for Patrick. He did a very good description of what we've been going through with them, with the township, to make this project kind of in the right track and approved and meet all the codes and requirements. And I need to put my address, yeah?
Your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Ghassan Abdenour at 24001 Orchard Lake Road, Farmington, Michigan, 48336.
Thank you.
So we thank the township for going through this project with us and going through every little tiny details to make sure that we meet the codes and requirements. And we try to, in the process, to kind of try to work with the area we're working with, try to stay away from any environmental issues, meet the requirements and the setback, stay away from the wetland, keep enough buffer to the east of the project, and work with the county to make sure that the circulation and the traffic works in the right direction. So we are working on a traffic study. we're working with Wayne County to make sure that the traffic is going to meet the requirements and make sure that make it easy for people circulation on Ridge Road. This is just a preliminary, just to tell you that we've been going through all this with Patrick, the building department, the civil engineering departments, and the whole township. So really, our proposal is just to change the zoning from RR to R1. RR really let you put a kind of religious building with assigned the schools and gyms. But the recommendation came from Patrick to go to R1 because in the future, if we want to do a small daycare or some kind of school, so it's better to go to R1 zoning. And that's why we've been working with him and trying to get all the advice to make that work. So, and especially here, we have a lot of a group that works with us here. We're all here to work with the neighbors. We see what they concern and to work with them and make everybody happy in the process. It's almost 11 and a half acres. It's a good sized property. We're only using less than half of it. The building footprint and the building on the side is only 9.3%. So the building is in the future, when we go through special use, we go into the plan itself, the size, and all the requirements. But I'm here if you have any questions, or if the neighbors has any comments, we're gonna take notes for it and make sure that we respond to them and try to work with everybody to make everything work in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I also want to remind everyone that, as you said, this is a request for rezoning. We're not looking at the special land use yet. So there are specific criteria that Patrick outlined that we can consider legally for this. We can't consider, certain things that are outside of our review considerations that Patrick outlined. So with that, sir, you have had your hand up. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everybody. Hassan Jamal, Riverway Drive, Canton. My question to the planner, since this application is being advertised and being talked about that it is a separate application, so it should be clear that this application of rezoning doesn't include the school. So because it's inclusive, and inclusivity in application mean the intention is to have a school. So by you trying to separate something that the applicant is not trying to separate, I don't know what to say. Stop here. Second, rezoning an area known to be a residential area to a specific rezoning, to a specific future inclusivity in the application. Now everybody knows that's going to be a school. So this playing around and trying to play with words, maybe it's a good tactic, but people they know it's going to be a school. We have no opposition to school or anything like that. I am Muslim, but let's make sure that we accommodate what Canton is about. This area is a residential area. So if the neighborhood want to keep it residential rule, then keep it residential rule until time comes in. Like right now, we have Ford Road from Canton Center to Ridge, still 55 miles an hour. We can't even in and out. It got to be reduced to 45. So those are the things we should be looking at as a planning commission or designers to accommodate what we have. We have a beautiful community here. We come in here to have, residential, relaxation, area where PUDs, and that's why we are in Canton. So if a school wanted to be in, no problem. Is the resident, do we have hundreds of people are supporting this project as a school? Great, where they are. If everybody wanted to keep that residential area R1, then let the application be an R1. Take the school out. When it's rezoned to be an R1, then come back and say, well, we need to have a school. Then the other discussion. That's all I have to say.
You don't need to speak right into the microphone. And I'm going to ask, that please don't applaud, because like I said, we have a very long meeting this evening, and the applause takes more time, so thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Hassan Beydoun. I've lived in Canton since 1999. I'm proud American Muslim. I'm also a proud veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I'm one of the founding members of Mecca, as well as I serve as the treasurer on the board of Mecca. We are doing a religious worship site with a future for a school, with a future for a daycare. Just like any other religious church or anything, they all have Sunday and Saturday and Sunday schools in them. So we're not doing anything different than anybody else that's doing. We're only asking for an R1 zoning so that in the future, that if we decide to do a private religious school, that we are in a position to do it. I would request from the board that everybody supports this. This is going to be a great project for Canton and the community in Canton. And there was a lot of disparaging remarks about religion in there. I'm not going to address them with ignorance. I don't speak ignorance. We're all God-loving people, and we're all Americans, and we all love each other, whether you're Muslim, Christian, or any other faith that you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, in the back? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
I think the best way of doing this is just to have folks line up. I don't think this needs to be a call on it
Okay,
kind of
yeah, if you
situation.
wanna speak,
Yeah, as
please.
long as everybody doesn't block like the exit route.
Yeah, we gotta
gonna
keep
ask-
the door opening clear, please.
Would you please put up the site plan, please?
Sir, could you give us a second? Could everyone please move away from the door? We can't block the exit, so thank you. Okay, sir, please give us your name and address for the record.
David Branshaw, 6350 Ridge Road. I'm the property immediately north of where the proposed site is.
Thank you.
Would you please put up the proposed site as they plan to build it with the parking lots and stuff?
Sir, this is a public hearing, and as such, you're allotted a certain amount of time to speak on the issue, but they are not obligated to do a slideshow for every single participant. This is your opportunity to talk to the board
Okay.
and let them
The site they're
hear your
showing
thoughts.
shows the parking and stuff going right almost up to the property line. My property comes to the south side of the creek. There's a big, low area. If they put the parking as they proposed, it appears they're filling in part of the floodplain along that creek. I already had flooded once and almost several times. If they start filling that area in, that's directly across from my house. I object to that.
Skirt, can I interrupt you 1 second? I'm going to defer to council on this. This sounds like we're getting into the special land use here in the
I
site
can't hear
plan.
you very well, I'm so sorry.
This sounds like we're getting into the special land use in the site plan here.
Right.
Can you speak and tell people again, we're talking about the rezoning tonight, not the site plan specifics?
Yeah, exactly, that's what we're
Okay.
here to talk about. We're
As far
trying
as
to
the
focus on the.
R1
Hard to hear
for a
you.
school,
Oh.
Yeah.
What about now?
Yeah.
Is this on? Okay. No, we are here to speak just to the rezoning factor.
okay,
You know, if you can
rezoning
limit your
for
comment to that, that'd be
R1
great.
for the school. The predecessor said Saturday and Sunday. If they're putting a school in, is it going to be the 5 days during the week of school or just the Saturday and Sunday? Because if it's going to be the 5 days during the week, your traffic study needs to include what they anticipate that to be too.
That was
Not
that
just
was one of the comments
now.
we gave them. That's true.
And right now, traffic backs up to north of Hanford at times. I can't get out my driveway. It's a 55-mile-an-hour zone. Even though I have a pickup, road's still high enough, I can't see. I pull out to go north. By the time I can get one driveway over, the people that are flying down that road at 55, 70, 100 miles an hour, and believe me, there are some at 100 or close to it, are right on my tail. And I put my turn signal on south of the creek basically at the current driveway for the house going into the property being considered. And I get people blowing their horns at me because I want to turn into my own property. So how is more traffic going to benefit me or anybody else in that area? It's not. If it's R1 for residential, there'll be a lot less traffic than going into a special land use, and the property stays on the tax rolls.
Okay, thank you.
I know,
Is the
something's wrong with the microphone.
microphone
Now they're hard, now you can hardly hear us.
Yeah. I think we turned them down too much.
Come on, John.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Elaine Jarris. I live at 51326 Murray Hill Drive, and I'm just here to speak about the intersection of Hanford and Ridge, and I know there's going to be a traffic study, but I just want to repeat everybody else. That's a really dangerous intersection, and I hope that Wayne County could fix that. It's a blind corner. I just want somebody to fix it.
Thank you.
Adios.
Can we turn the mics up a little? Is it possible? Because they're really quiet now. Please give us a moment, ma'am. Thanks. It's not, I mean, if it's not one thing, it's another.
We're high maintenance, John.
Yeah. Thank you. Please tell us your name and address for the
Hi,
record.
Lori Barnett, 6376 Ridge Road.
I'm sorry.
Lori Barnett, 6376 Ridge Road. So I know we're not supposed to be here talking about the special land use, but that's our interest. We don't really care about R1 versus rural residential. We care about special land use. There are a couple of
There
people.
will be a separate hearing
Public
about,
hearing for that, ma'am.
yeah, this isn't the public hearing for that. We are going to have a separate public hearing for the special land use at another time.
Okay. There are a couple of people who live in that area that have lived there since the mid-'70s. Several families lived there since the mid-'70s. We moved there because it was a rural area. It was a quiet, country-like setting. We liked Ridge Road because it was close to city life, right? But we still had that up north feel. Quiet, country-like, up north feel. We were surrounded by cornfields, trees, dirt roads, nature and wildlife. Over time, the neighborhood has changed. We know things evolve, right? Farmers moved on. Cornfields were replaced with subdivisions. Dirt roads have been replaced with what seems like the German Autobahn. But largely, with the exception of a few exceptions, the area has remained a quiet residential area. I think now we're feeling like the charm of our residential area is being threatened. I look at that site map, I see a lot of concrete. I see ravines potentially being filled in.
We're just talking about the rezoning tonight,
Okay.
ma'am.
Well, I also am concerned about traffic. I'm concerned about, as other people are saying, corner of Ridge Road in Hanford is a danger area. People have to pull out halfway into the road to be able to even make a left-hand turn. The traffic, we're concerned about the traffic. Seems like Ridge Road narrows, and right in front of that property, I mean, it narrows down, and I think that's a hazard. Again, the speed limit is 55. People drive more than 55. We got hidden driveways on Ridge Road there. We got a ravine that people have to drive down, and we have the hidden driveways. We've got the creek itself, which we're very concerned about the creek and the nature and the contamination potentially of the creek. Obviously noise, we have a school already in the area. I know we're not talking school, so I'll shut up about that.
Your time is up, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Hello, I'm John Bernard. I live at 6050 North Ridge Road, 2 houses down from the proposed site. And my major concerns are Fellows Creek, because my house is in the back of the property, and it's roughly 50 yards from the creek. And this past season was the closest that I've ever come to flooding. And so that would be my major concern there. You've heard it all about the traffic. Are they going to cut into that north lane just on the adjacent property, or are they going to cut into my property?
We will address your question after the public hearing.
Okay,
So Patrick will address that.
okay. All right,
Which-
thank you.
Which house is yours on the, is it shown
I'm
there?
2 houses south,
Thank you, okay.
right next to the apartment.
You're right adjacent to the apartments?
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Gagan Kaur, and I live in 5844 Fairbawn Drive. This is in Fellows Creek Estates. My concern, I think everybody has addressed traffic on the Ridge Road, but we have to address the elephant in the room, which is Ford Road, because that is the main road that is going to be utilized by anybody coming into the Canton. If I'm assuming everybody sitting over here, we have used Ford Road during morning and evening hours when the school timings are done, or even during office hours when there's traffic. There are giant lines over there. The only entrance that we have, unless we are going towards the, Fox Run entrance, leads into the Ford Road. The traffic is jam-packed. Sometimes we have to stand there in line for 5 minutes. Trust me, 5 minutes sounds very less as such, but if you are standing over there, it is quite a lot, especially if you have to drop your child or go to office. That traffic is already congested. I'm not sure, and if there will be any further room without broadening Ford Road to accommodate any more traffic. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, name Gurjitinder Singh Jasser, 6249 Valley View Drive, Canton. I have one of the properties that touches this land. I know we talked about keeping the 2 issues separate, but they're not. So I'll speak I have a couple of questions. Actually, one question, one comment. The comment is, like the first speaker said, this is a residential area, right? There are houses all around it. We'd like to keep it that way. Second one is a question. We talked about the eastern part of the property being left alone for the wooded area. And the word used was proposed to be left alone. So what are the legal obligations of leaving it alone? Second is, some of the neighbors were talking that there is a plan that was discussed to have a nature walkway on that property to be put up by the new occupants.
By whom?
By the new occupant, by MECCA. So we'd like to know more about that. Is that going to be left, A, completely alone? And B, are they obligated to leave it alone, or are they just proposing to leave it alone and they can change it at any time after the proposal's been accepted? That's all I had.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Syed Naveed Raza. I am at 50590 Belmont Court in Canton. I am the chair of the board of directors of Mecca. I'd like to thank you all for hosting this and for all of you to be here. I've just been listening to all of you, and I empathize with a lot of your thoughts and feelings as neighbors and residents in Canton and our current neighbors, given the current situation. Regarding the rezoning, I'll just speak specifically to that, given that's what we're here for. There is no specific plan for a full-time school at this time. We spoke to Patrick, and given that there is a need for daycare in the community, given working families, the thought was that if that was a need in the future, it may be wiser to rezone to allow for that and accommodate that in the future. In terms of a school, there's no full-time school at this. We have some classrooms in the projects to allow for just weekend heritage classes and things of that sort. Regarding the traffic, we agree and sympathize with issues relating to traffic, and we'll be working closely with the city and with the county to address those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If you want to speak, please go to the podium and get in line. We don't want to take time to have everybody come up from their seats, please. Good
Hi,
evening.
my name is Lori Kuroff, and I'm the person we're at 6100 Northridge Road. We're going to be right beside this site. I'm not going to talk about traffic or anything, it's already been said.
Thank you.
But I will say, when we wake up in the morning, we walk out on our patio, this thing will be right beside us. I don't care whether it's religious or not, okay? It's a big building that's gonna take away our wildlife. I'm very passionate about this, so I'm a little emotional right now. But if it was you and you had to turn around and wake up to a parking lot next to you, when you had woods next to you and things, and wildlife, and I mean, we have baby possums in our yard. We have, we have raccoons, which those are hard to deal with sometimes, but, we have deer that come in our yard. We watch their babies. And I'm heartbroken about this, that we would wake up to this. And it has nothing to do with church or religion or anything like that. It just has to do with having a serene and a comfortable life. Thank you, that's all I have to
Thank
say.
you for sharing that.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jeff Mallett. I live at 351 Springfield Drive in Canton. Been a resident of Canton for the last 3 years. I moved from Dearborn Heights, born and raised in Dearborn, but been here in the city for a while. And I've seen a lot of development happening throughout Canton. So I think, tonight we're here for rezoning. I'm here in support of this project. And the reason why is if you leave kind of the religious and all the other things aside, if the project has met all the requirements of the city, if they're willing to, make changes, do the traffic study, and, provide the necessary, adjustments to the plan, I mean, why not? Because, we look at Canton, and Canton's I've been here 3 years, and I've seen a lot of development, and if the rezoning is similar to other rezoning projects that have occurred, then again, why not? If I believe that the community continues to grow, you're going to have a continued need to rezone for different types of land uses or whatever in the future. But if they're willing to meet all the requirements, if their plans meet the, rules and regulations and the laws within the city, then I just think it's, again, I say, why not? Why not, rezone and approve it and then move on to the next thing? So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wissam Hamoud, address 46609 Inverness Road, Canton, Michigan. I am one of the board members for Mecca, and I'm here today just to remind everyone that we are here to listen. We've done our homework. We've hired the best engineers. We've got all the paperwork that the city asked. And I know at this moment we're only talking about rezoning, and we're only talking about this particular issue. So as Patrick mentioned, as far as everything that of a concern to rezone, I think we've covered it. We've, again, did our due diligence, and I would ask everyone to, if they have any questions related to traffic studies, to anything related to what would maybe prevent or help in approving the rezoning is to come up and take this opportunity to ask our engineers because, again, we did the research. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mukesh Patel. I live in
I'm sorry. It's very difficult to hear you, sir. What
Okay,
was your name?
my name is Mukesh Patel. I live in 45424 Glengarry Boulevard, Canton. I oppose this because, as everybody said, due to traffic, I would suggest that if you take a vote in this room, there are so many people has the same issue. So I would appreciate if you can reconvene this meeting after the traffic study. That would be appropriate. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Dave Barnett. I live at 6376 North Ridge Road, and I oppose all of it, and it's going to ruin the value of our houses.
Okay.
My wife said the rest.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ma'am?
Hello, my name is Dr. Aziza Askari. I am one of the board members of this project. And I, thank everybody who is here today because this gives us an opportunity to see what are your concerns. You are going to be our future neighbors to this project as well as potentially myself personally because I'm moving to Canton as well. So again, thank you. And, we do like to mention that we are going to make sure that, we understand the wildlife, we understand the beautiful landscape of Canton that has over the years attracted so many people, so much diverse populations in this city. So we definitely want to keep that. We want that beautiful landscape. I understand, how wonderful it is to sit outside and be able to enjoy nature. Believe me, that's the reason, one of the reasons I'm moving to this area as well. So I do want to, again, after thanking everyone, making sure that we all understand that we are here to be able to hear from everyone so that we can accommodate your wishes into our project. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Charles Holowecki. I live at 48856 Wild Rose in the Fellows Creek subdivision. 2 points. One, you said you wanted to hear from one person from any group. We've already heard from at least four people from Mecca.
May I just respond to that, please? What we said was if you were representing a group, you got 5 minutes to speak. We've been timing everyone, and no one has taken more than 3 minutes.
Okay. The other thing is I wasn't quite clear on what is the possibilities for the area on the east side of the site, the wooded area and Fellows Creek. Is there, if you rezone this, is there potential for development of that east side where the woods and the creek are?
We'll let Patrick address that when the public hearing is done.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
My name is Nilesh Upadhyay, 50151 Pelham Court. I live on Warren and Ridge, Westchester. Only question I have is we emailed, there was a proposal and we emailed. How will you consider, I oppose this project, but how will you consider that email responses? Because most of the people are not here. So I want to represent the people who have opposed an email. How will you consider their vote in the consideration, the people who are not present here? What's the weightage for that? Or what action you are going to take?
We received those emails. I wasn't able to read through every single one. I couldn't open the last one on this device, and it came rather late in the day. But we get the gist of those comments is negative, and that there are many people opposed. So we understand that, we heard that.
Okay, but will that be considered when you decide
Yes.
rezoning? Okay, I just wanted to understand if there is a way of communication with the emails or electronic communication, that should be considered.
Absolutely.
With the people who are present in this room. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Going once. Oh, we got a couple more people.
People, if you want to speak, please get in line.
Yeah, please stand now if you plan to speak. We're going to be closing the public hearing soon. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ajay Patel. I live at 49221 Castleford Drive, Canton, Michigan. I walk too much, around 20,000 steps a day. And initially when I started walking, I loved to go through that road. And at that time, that hardly any traffic. You know, I was easily able to cross the road. I can enjoy myself. But from last few years, I saw lot of traffic, even in the morning or late night, and they are honking and there are so much speed, you know, maybe 55 or more, and it's not good. And by converting the zone, you know, we are inviting more people. On top of that, there is no walkway. You know, if people who comes over to that institutes, you know, and if they want to walk outside, you know, there is no walkway just after that because the next door neighborhood, they don't have any walkway. So that may be the problem again in the future. I hope you will reconsider this, and I'm against this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Vijay Marur, 50001 Pelham Court of Ridge and Warren. In support of all the comments that were made about traffic, I'm not going to cover that, but I do have a question to the staff in terms of what research, if any, has been done in terms of the density of people that are going to be around those three major buildings. There is the apartment complex, there is Canton Charter Academy. As it is, there is a lot of traffic. With the new proposed site coming up, what studies have been conducted to understand the impact of so many people concentrated in that particular area over an extended period of time? In terms of safety with regards to vehicular traffic, is there any proposal to expand the roads? I simply haven't seen any data to that effect in terms of how many people are going to be using that particular area at any given point of time. Lacking such data, I do not know if I would, say yes or no. In principle, I'm opposed to it. It has got nothing to do with religion. I myself am an immigrant. I have a very diverse background, but this is purely civic and infrastructure oriented. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jigar Patel, address
Hold the
150.
mic up a little bit, please.
That's a problem with my height. My name is Jigar Patel, address 150 West Canford Park. I oppose this rezoning. In my opinion, it's a residential site and it should stay residential site. I see all the future planning for school building and all that thing. We don't know, you know? So once it's changed to one zone and then it changes to another zone and it just keeps changing. Been the resident of Canton for 14 years now. I see it's changing a lot. I think we need to slow down and keep this community beautiful. A lot of us, people just keep moving out, people are keep moving in, and I think we should just keep it residential and not change the zone. So I oppose this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kirsten Park, 5967 Fairborn Drive. Just a quick question. Is this the same group slash people that were looking to build a school just forward of Canton Center Charter, the Canton Charter School, just maybe like 3 or 4 years ago?
Apparently not. They're
It's
shaking
not
their
part
heads.
of the, okay. And then just the rezoning, I guess, I've been here 9 years, and at what point is enough? Like, the green space is completely like disappearing. I've never seen a place like grow as fast as this place has in the 9 years I've been here, so.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Watkins, support by Commissioner Weber to close the public hearing.
Before we close, can we just have one last call just to make sure that?
Yeah, certainly. We'll hold that thought. Were you going to speak, sir, in the green?
Hi, my name is Bridges Bhagat. I live in 2086 Town Center Road, Canton, Michigan. When I moved 10 years back from Rochester to Canton, was my understanding that Ford Road and Michigan Avenue only the commercial place, rest of them are residential. And I loved that because, we walk, we enjoy ourselves going around the residential. But now more and more zoning coming, right across from the schools, there is a Greenland coming. Like all that getting commercial now, it's hard being like walk throughout the day and enjoy the, like residential. So we want to keep it, whatever residential place left, we want to keep as a residential. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, last call. Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Watkins and support by Commissioner Weber. This is it.
I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay.
Hi, my name is Sayeda Raza, and I live on 1209 Henry, Canton, Michigan, living here for the past 28 years. And what I hear from the people is the traffic concern mostly. And we are seeing like the Canton Center at that time was all fields. And we are growing, and now there are so many subdivisions all the way to the Ann Arbor. So please don't compare that to the school traffic, because this school would be different. There are not so many kids in there. And if you are comparing it with the Workman or with the high school traffic, it won't be like that for the school. That's it.
Thank you. Okay. Everyone, please get in line if you'd like to speak.
Oh, we're done.
Yeah.
My name is Darshana Patel. I live in 48128 Riverway Court, Canton. I just live a block from the site. My question is, if I heard it right, they said the school is going to be on the weekend, most of the time Saturday and Sunday. My suggestion is, why to rezone just for 2 days? Why to disturb the whole residential area and convert that into the commercial one? Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify, we're not rezoning to a commercial district. We're rezoning to a different residential district. And if you look around Canton, I just want to, and I'm sure Patrick will address this too. If you look around Canton, most religious facilities and schools are in residential districts. And that's because that's where people want them to be, and that's where they're permitted by law. So we're not making it a commercial district, just to clarify. So we have a motion and support to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed. Thank you. Patrick, would you like to address some of the comments and questions that people made?
Sure. I'll start with the last one first. With the religious land uses in residential districts, we have quite a few religious land uses in residential districts, probably more so than any other non-residential districts for that reason. Religious land uses, they want to be located around people. And some of them may be members and others may not be, but oftentimes with the right criteria, they can make good neighbors. So that's something that I'll reserve for the special land use comments, just to make the observation that there are a number of religious land uses in the community that are in residential districts as special land uses. Looking at some of the traffic study, we covered some of it in our analysis in terms of any studies regarding density and road upgrades. I'll talk a little bit about what a traffic impact study does. There's a number of different studies. There's traffic impact assessments, there's traffic impact analysis, there's traffic impact study. Traffic impact study is the more detailed of those. That's where there are actual counts taken, and they're modeled, and they're very long reports. And in this case, it is a very long report, and it has an executive summary at the very beginning that just summarizes the current level of traffic, the background level of traffic in the future without the development, and then finally the level of traffic in the future with the development to show some of the differences. So that's a study that has taken place and is continuing to take place and be revised based on comments from staff and consultants. Within that study, where there are levels of service that are either currently below capacity or will fall further below in capacity to levels E and F, and those are technical classifications in the traffic study. Traffic studies oftentimes will provide a list or a summary of what kind of upgrades would be required to raise the capacity of a road or raise the level of service of a road to a level of service of D or higher. A level of service of D or higher in a traffic study is considered acceptable. In general, that can take place a number of different ways. It doesn't always have to mean lane widening or widening an intersection. Sometimes it can deal with signalization, either signal upgrades or signal optimization, or adding signals that are dedicated right turn or left turn. Those get in a little bit more detail in terms of specific remedies. So in this case, we can't really make any affirmative findings without the revisions to the traffic study, but that is to say that those are things that typically a traffic study does address in terms of existing capacity, impact on the roads, and potential remedies, if any, based on traffic impacts in the area. The next comment, and I'll pull up the aerial map again so I can talk about that in more detail. And that was a question about the east side of the site, of what prospectively could happen with the east side. So talk a little bit more about that. So this makes it a little bit easier to talk about in general, because the east side of the site, it's really regardless of zoning district or use. In that east side of the site, there is Fellows Creek that runs north and south, and then there's another branch of Fellows that converges. So the east side of the site is very limited in terms of any kind of site development. If there's anything in the northeast corner, it'd be very difficult because it's very hard to get to it. There's state and federal permitting that's involved with doing any impacts to floodplains. In the southeast corner, the same could be said. What I will say is that highlighted in turquoise is the subject property that we're talking about. And the property to the south, it's owned by somebody else. But the property to the south, it does abut a stub road to the residential district to the east. When residential developments are built, we try to the greatest extent possible to have these developments include stub roads, especially adjacent to undeveloped land where in the future there may be some development where we could remedy or mitigate a lot of future traffic issues if we have stub roads and future development connects to them. It doesn't always happen. Some stub roads exist for several decades without any development. Some stub roads in the community exist with probably no connection ever. It's just a way of trying to pre-plan what may happen in the future. So the stub roads don't necessarily mean that there will be development there. It's just a plan for if there is development. It's something that gives us another option of, for example, if something happens on the east side of the site, would we rather it go across a bridge, across a floodplain in a creek, or connect to a stub road? I don't know if the road is private or public, but there is a homeowners association, so there would be some cooperation there. If it was to be single-family residences, and again, the subject property for the application tonight does not abut a stub road. But if the property to the west was on the parcel to the south, there would be some cooperation with the adjacent HOA in terms of if something else accesses it there. As an aside, and this is going back several years, we have had inquiries from residential developers about a number of parcels on the east side of Ridge, including the subject parcel and including a parcel to the south. I'm not aware of any prospective developer having under contract. Sometimes they just reach out to see what the master plan recommends, what the zoning could allow, and we've had residential developers ask about, could houses be developed on this east side? There's a lot that really goes into it. You know, the access is the big part, the cooperation with the adjacent development. So that's a much larger question related to if something can happen on the east side, either independent of or in collaboration with something on the west side of the site. So as the special land use plan is proposed, it doesn't propose anything within the floodplain or east of the floodplain just because the principal use is on the west side. There's really nothing that they've proposed there. And in the many discussions that we've had with the applicants, including all the way to the pre-application discussions, we really haven't had any substantive talks about anything on the east side of the site just because it really hasn't been a focus of the applicants in their work with staff on that. The last item that I'll talk about that I heard where there was a question directed was on a potential impact to a property to the south in terms of a lane. So this is just illustrative. Doesn't mean that it would happen, but on the south entrance that's proposed on the layout plan, there is a dedicated right turn lane that's illustrated there that goes across the site to the south. Now, a lot of that depends on if there's existing road right-of-way there. I don't know if there is existing road right-of-way where the county would even be allowed to put a lane there. That's a more site-specific comment that we can look into. We can follow up with Wayne County to see if there is available right-of-way there, if they have the available land to widen it if they wanted to, or if they even could. So that's something that we can look at in more detail in terms of the location of the existing right-of-way, and if that's something that feasibly, whether this lane could be there. Those are all the ones that I had written down, but through the Planning Commission, I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Patrick. All right. Sir, the public hearing is closed, so we're done hearing comments or questions from the public for this issue right at the moment. We will revisit it when we come for special land use. So having said all that, I would like to hear what the board, the Planning Commission feels. Commissioner Watkins?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Just a few comments. I think much has been said, and Patrick, thank you so much for laying out so eloquently, and as well as the people who are in this room. What I think is important for us to share amongst ourselves is to understand where we are and what we're doing tonight. And that is, this is looking at the rezoning. This has nothing to do with the site plan. This has nothing to do with the design. None of that. None of it. We're here tonight to talk about the rezoning. And I think the rezoning at this juncture lacks one very important thing, Patrick, you just pointed out. It lacks the final seal of the traffic study. Unfortunately, we're here again, colleagues, right? What is it? Who is it? Yogi Berra? He says, deja vu all over again, right? Because our partners at the county hold those things under their purview, i.e. road improvements on Ridge, road improvements on Ford Road. So those are things that are incomplete at this time, and we don't have the information from the traffic study. I think what works in this case is for us to be able to really get all the information from the traffic study in conjunction with its review before making a decision on the rezoning, which is what we're here to talk about today. That is the rezoning, not the project, not what it looks like, not parking, not trees. We're here to talk about the rezoning. And I want to make sure that we as colleagues understand that as we make that decision tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Watkins. Commissioner Lee?
Yes, overwhelmingly, it's just traffic for me. My issue is that I think we got issues around the site already. Not only the traffic study for this site, which is piecemealing it, but what do we do overall? I don't know how we address that, because there are other issues that are going on already in the area that I'm hearing from the community. So that's my only concern.
Thank you. Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes, thank you. I also am concerned about the traffic, as, like you say, Commissioner Watkins, we discuss this every time anything ever comes before us. We're like, until we get that final traffic study, we don't want to make a decision because we don't have all the information. I would like to say I know one of you talked about rezoning or growth, what's going on. We have been just going through a huge master plan project. And Erin would be more than happy to spend a lot of time talking to you about it because she spent a lot of time talking to us about it.
Just not tonight.
But yeah, not tonight. But if you want it, I mean, I think it's been an incredible undertaking. She's done a wonderful job, and it is something that we as a community have wanted to say. Let's look at the decisions we're making. Let's look at our master plan and what are we doing here? How are we creating Canton for the next 5 to 10 years. So I would suggest any of you that are kind of wondering about how does this all work, talk to Erin. You can thank me later, Erin.
Yes. She
So, but
loves
for this
talking about it.
project, I need to know more about the traffic.
Thank you, Commissioner Eggenberger. Commissioner Weber?
Thank you. So I have a couple of thoughts. First and foremost, as my fellow commissioners have already stated, and many of you, is the traffic concern. And I just want to be totally clear. I have no issue with the proposed use or anything like that. My concern is traffic, and that's what we have to look at. One of the big things we have to look at as far as this rezoning goes. As Commissioner Lee pointed out, unfortunately, it's not just this project we have to look at. We have to look at in the scope of everything that's going on in the area. We addressed this very issue, I believe it was last year when we did the rezoning of the property at Napier and Ford Road. And quite honestly, my issue is Ford Road traffic. I know many of you who live on Ridge Road, and I drove down Ridge Road today. I understand your concerns, and it is a concern, but this is going to dump a lot of traffic, more traffic on the Ford Road, which already has its issues. And unfortunately, we do have to rely on the state and county a lot, but I'm getting quite frustrated with this process. I'm getting tired of having to say we have to defer to the county, we have to defer to the state. Because I'm getting to the point now where I'm very hesitant to consider any significant developments in this area, and I'm not just talking about on Ford Road, immediately adjacent to Ford Road, without seeing a definitive plan of what's going to happen with Ford Road. Whether it's a means speed, more lanes, more, adjusting signalization. I think we need to see, somebody needs to be responsible for doing a comprehensive plan of Ford Road. And obviously that's the county or the state, but it's hard for us to make decisions based on one of the primary criteria that we have to look at when we don't know what it looks like ourselves. So I sympathize with each and every one of you about Ford Road. I drive Ford Road almost every day, and I understand the concerns. And trust me, it is a concern of mine also. The second issue for me is in looking at whether infrastructure can handle the rezoning. Everyone's focused on traffic, but I am also concerned about the stormwater drainage. Hey, we're going to be talking about a large area of impervious surface here. And I know everyone in this room knows all too well about the flooding issues we've had in Canton in recent years. And it's not just in Canton, it's all along the Rouge watershed. So, but we're kind of at the head end, and I don't want to see us to exacerbate the problem if that's what we'd be doing. So that's, and I know in Patrick's report, he says that that's under the purview of the county also, but yet we're asked to make a decision based on that criteria. I think it's fair for us to expect some input from the county on that issue before we can make a informed decision on the rezoning. And I guess I guess that I did have one other, but I think that's more appropriate for the special use thing. The one other thing I do want to add, Patrick, you mentioned in your comments in going through the various criteria for review is that whether this use is consistent with future land use map and all that sort of thing. And I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus or anything, but in our master plan discussions, we've talked about trying to keep this area as, I don't want to say specifically rural residential, but somewhat rural because so many people do want to see at least some portion of Canton retained that way. I understand in a way by just going to R1 we are doing that, but R1 allows for some other special land uses that are not allowed in rural residential. Educational institutions are one of them. There are some others too that I fear that if we rezone this and this project doesn't happen, then it opens the door for some other possibilities that maybe the residents in that area or potential property owners there may not want to see also. So I guess I disagree somewhat with you in saying that this is consistent with the future land use map. And it might be consistent with as it sits right now, but I don't believe it's consistent with what we've talked about in our master plan discussions. That being said, I hope everyone understands also that if all you were planning on doing was a religious institution, you folks could come in for special land use approval or review, and this exercise wouldn't be necessary. But I hear comments about we might build a school, or we're going to wait and see what's going to be done. And I don't know if Patrick made the suggestion or whatever, but I have difficulty rezoning a property for what might come in when we don't know for a fact that may come. So I do have some questions about the whole notion of whether a school is truly coming or not. That's all I have now, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Weber. Commissioner Foster?
Thank you. To echo the comments of several commissioners, traffic, in what has been said in this room, traffic is a huge issue in this area. And I do believe that it would be a wise decision to postpone a decision until we do get the traffic study. So we are able to make an accurate assessment of what we are, what type of impact rezoning will have in this area. I do want to make a comment, though. It was said, how much is too much development in this community, in this area. And, one of the things that we sit here on the Planning Commission every month and people are like, don't develop, don't develop. Well, we as Canton Township don't own the property, right? Property owners own the property. And at some point, land is going to be developed. And so it's up to us as planning commissioners to say, if land is going to be developed, if we're going to bring something to an area, what do we want there? Is it, will it serve the community? Is it something that will fit in? Is it consistent with the land around it? And we make decisions based on that. But we can't say, don't develop an area that we don't own, right? The Michigan zoning law gives a lot of preference to property owners. And so that is something that we have to balance, but we also have the interest in mind of the community, and we don't want to create areas where we see more flooding, where we see traffic holding up, and it's part of the job of staff and folks who work in the engineering and planning department to have conversations with the county and the state to see what upgrades we can make to infrastructure to make sure we are able to accommodate property owners. And, I hope that we will be able to do that in this area. But I do understand all of the concerns about traffic. I do understand the concerns that Commissioner Weber just brought up about flooding. And I do understand the concerns about people wanting to maintain the character of Canton Township. But at the end of the day, Canton Township doesn't own this property. It is going to be developed. And I will sit here and say that I think the plan is a good plan. It's an interesting plan, but we're here today to talk about rezoning. And for me to make a responsible rezoning decision, I want to see the traffic study.
Thank you, Commissioner Foster. Commissioner Cruz?
You
There's
were
just so
left
many,
speechless.
honestly, there's just so many traffic issues whenever I read this traffic report. For me to support a rezone, I need to be convinced that the traffic is going to work. And I'm going to be dead honest about that. If it doesn't work, I'm not supporting it. Now, Wade Trim, the city's consultant, I'm going to read this statement. It's a powerful statement. If there are no plans for roadway improvements in this area, the request for approval of a traffic impact study should be denied, along with other TIAs that have similar large impacts at the intersection of Ford and Ridge Road, it would not be in the public interest to approve a high-volume traffic generator which would cause major delay and create additional risk taking at Ford and Ridge Road. So regardless of religion or the use, the traffic generated is what I'm concerned with. And Wade Trim also suggests that we set up a meeting with the county, MDOT, and Canton Township to discuss the future improvements to make this a better intersection to further future development. They even talk about retiming some of the signals, creating a right turn lane on southbound Ridge Road, and adding a left turn signal. So those are major improvements, and I'd like to see what the plans are for those improvements to facilitate a development like this. The other thing I want to mention is the traffic study, they don't analyze the inner workings of a development. I'll give you an example. Canton, I think it's South Canton Scholars School on Canton Center is almost the exact same setup where you have two entrances, two access points. They had to redo their traffic circulation because it was causing backups on Canton Center Road. So I think that the traffic engineers have to look at that as a case study, and they did a one-way in and out, and it significantly improved the circulation. So I'd like the traffic engineer and the designer to kind of learn from that mistake, since it's a very similar setup. And the traffic study should address that inner circulation as well as the Ford Road capacities, Ridge capacities also. Two other things. I'm a proponent for sidewalks. I believe that sidewalks should be extended to the frontage of each property. If there's a drain there, that can be permitted through Eagle. Build that to your property or past your property and get that permitted. This is how gaps are created and never filled in, and it creates a dangerous non-motorist movement. So let's complete our master plan for sidewalks and be consistent and make developers put frontage sidewalks to the very ends of their property. The last thing, this is for the site plan. You know, there are concerns with viewing the building. I just want to make sure there's no landscape here, that there's considerations of proper screening to neighbors. That's a major concern, that people don't want to look at a building if you're living right next door to it. So those are the things that I'm going to look for in order to support this development. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Janowski?
I don't want to waste anybody's time. I need to see the traffic study, and that's the main point, what we're looking at right now. I am optimistic, as my colleague mentioned, that, you know, with the building, if the zoning variance goes through and the building does get built, there's a lot of ways to work together. And we've had projects where everybody's come together, and I'd say probably about 90% of the people were happy walking out. So that's encouraging when I saw that. So I think that's something that Canton's capable of doing. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you. And I'd like to say too, I share the concerns about traffic. I share the concerns about the character of our community, but I do want to point out on the image that we have on the screen, you can see surrounding this site, there are a lot of higher density zoning areas already that we already either approved or were already approved in the master plan and the zoning map. So I think it would be difficult to make an argument that we can't grant this based on keeping the density of the neighborhood the same. There's a big subdivision just north of Hanford Road. There's one on the east side and on the west side, and there's one immediately east of this. And then there's, of course, the apartment building or apartment complex to the south, which we didn't get to have a say over for another reason, but you know, it would be very difficult for us to argue that we're changing the character of that immediate neighborhood by permitting this property. But I do support what my colleagues have said about, I think we need to see a little bit more information for the traffic study. So having said that, does anyone care to make a motion?
I have a motion, Madam Chair.
All right.
I move to postpone action on the request to rezone parcel number 031-99-0007-000, 6200 North Ridge Road, from RR Rural Residential to R1 Single Family Residential, pending additional information on the traffic impact study based on comments from Canton Township staff and Canton's traffic engineering consultant. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Watkins and support by Commissioner Foster. Any further discussion? All right, Commissioner Eggenberger, could you call the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Cruz?
So the vote is yes to postpone?
Correct.
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger, yes. Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Janowski? Yes. Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
And Chairperson Zuber?
Yes. All right, so the next step is that we will hopefully hear from the applicants with more information, correct, Patrick?
Correct. Once we have additional information on the traffic study, we'll take a look at it as staff, both planning division and engineering division. We will also have our traffic engineering consultant, Wade Trim, look at it as well. Once the traffic impact study includes the information that we're looking for and any discrepancies are resolved, we will come back to the Planning Commission and have this on a future agenda to include that information that was noted in the motion.
Thank you. Unfortunately, at that future point, we will not have another public hearing on the rezoning, correct? We're done having the public hearing on rezoning.
That's correct.
Correct.
We're required to have one public hearing, which we've held. On future agendas, anyone who's interested is encouraged to look online at our agendas. We also post our agendas at the building according to the Open Meetings Act. So for anyone interested, we encourage you to follow future agendas in the coming months. Those agendas get posted usually the Thursday before the meeting. And rarely is it amended after it's posted in terms of new items. So the agenda that's posted on Thursday would most likely be the final agenda with everything there. So if this comes up on a future meeting, you're checking agendas at future meetings, check the Thursday, perhaps the Friday before to see what's coming on the Monday following.
But
Thank
folks
you.
can always email comments to the commission or to Patrick, and he will make sure that we get them.
And we do read them. So thank you very much to everyone who came. Thank you for those of you who spoke. Thank you to the project sponsors. I appreciate hearing from everyone. If you decide you're going to leave at this point, please do so quietly so we can continue our meeting.
Why don't we give the
Yeah,
room a
I
minute to
will.
to
Yeah,
clear out?
thank you. Yeah, I know that the bookmarks don't work.
No.
I know.
They worked for Papaya.
Yeah. I know. If you click item 2, the second item under it, the rezoning staff report, that one works.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you,
Folks,
everyone.
please, if you're going to have extra conversation, please leave.
All right, thank you, everyone, for your patience. I'd like to bring to the, like to call item number 2 for a public hearing, which is 050-RZ-8346. This is Canton Corners Ford Road LLC rezoning. We're considering rezoning for parcel number 054-99-0001-701, which is also known as 42911 and through 42927 Ford Road, to amend the conditional rezoning of the existing C2 Community Commercial District on the site. The property is located on the south side of Ford Road and east of Morrison Boulevard. The proposed rezoning to locate a restaurant in the building at the subject site. Patrick, please tell us more.
Sure, thank you. The current site, it's at Canton Corners, and the parcel itself is outlined in yellow. Contains a very large shopping center all the way to Morton Taylor, or to Lily Road to the east, and to Morrison Boulevard to the west. And the shopping center was combined with parcels many years ago. So right now it's currently one parcel. Several years ago, there were separate parcels, and among those separate parcels, they were located on the west side of the site. It's notched out on the conditional rezoning plans that were approved at that time, which are in the packet. And on this western part of the site, there was a conditional rezoning that was approved, and it was approved in 2007 to allow for the C2 Community Commercial District with conditions. At the time, there was a rezoning to C2 that was proposed, and at that time, there were concerns about the implications of zoning the site from office to a C2 Community Commercial District. Part of it was access management and the curb cuts. Part of it was the adjacency and proximity to residential uses in the adjacent neighborhood. And so at the time, it was proposed to have a conditional rezoning that allowed the applicant to propose conditions on a rezoning to make the C2 zoning more palatable. And many of those conditions are seen in the developed character of the site. So, for example, one of the conditions of the rezoning back in 2007 was no additional access onto Ford or Morrison. And there was an existing curb cut northwest of the site. And then on the west side at Morrison, that curb cut may have moved, but there have been no additional curb cuts on Ford or Morrison as a result of that proposed development. There were also some conditions with buffering and landscaping between the site and the adjacent uses, which has been implemented. So many of those conditions that have been implemented, they're kind of baked into the developed character of the site. There are a couple conditions that the current applicant proposes to remove from the site. One of the conditions that was adopted in 2007 was that the building couldn't have a restaurant. There was concern about food service in terms of parking on the site, as well as the traffic management and traffic impact. Before my time with the township, Genova Pizza had been proposed at the site, and I think there was a sit-down component to it. When Genova Pizza had left the site, it was reoccupied, and today the site has Buddy's Pizza, which is a takeout, Luca Pastry, which is a bakery. There may be a small seating component, but it's primarily a bakery, and there's also AAA. There's a proposed use for a dine-in, sit-down restaurant in the area that's occupied by AAA. And that condition that's in the conditional rezoning prohibits restaurants. So in the past, staff has approved a bakery, a carryout restaurant, and then before my time at Genova Pizza, there was a restaurant approved there. So just because there was one approved before, it doesn't supersede the conditional rezoning, which is why we're here. So when we recently had a zoning compliance for a sit-down restaurant, we brought up the conditional rezoning and discussed this with the applicant, and the applicant applied to just rezone it to C2. And after looking at the conditions, this has been modified in the course of the review. So the sign, the rezoning sign that's placed out there along Ford Road and along Morrison states that the proposal is to amend the conditions. The first is to the condition that prohibits restaurants and food service in the building. We recommend striking that condition. There's plenty of parking on the site. There's no shortage of parking. So having a full-scale restaurant, and it's all one parcel now as we see, so there's plenty of shared parking. Rarely is that parking lot ever full. And if the areas near Ford Road are more full, there are other places in the rear and side of the property where there are available spaces that are rarely occupied. So there's no shortage of parking on the site, and that's looking at, dozens of aerial photos over the last 10 or so years. And just when we drive by it, and personally, when I go to the shopping center, I've never had trouble finding a spot. So there's plenty of data there to justify that the parking is not a reason to not allow a restaurant there. Another concern, and this relates to the second condition that's proposed to be removed, is the condition prohibiting left turns onto Morrison Boulevard. At the time in 2007, there was concern that traffic from the shopping center would go towards Morrison, and there would be cut-through traffic going through the development, and that traffic would be turning left from the development onto Morrison. That concern, I don't think, has really been come to pass or has been realized. It would have the opposite effect of if people who live in the development, in the residential development off of Morrison, if they want to visit the shopping center and go home, they shouldn't be prohibited from taking a left turn onto Morrison. That would just encourage them to go onto Ford and take a left turn, which is what we want to prevent. We want more traffic onto Ford Road. If we can get cross access and using the streets to serve the local population, that's what we want. It's under.
Patrick, which one's Morrison? I don't see, I just,
Yeah, let me back out a bit. Yeah.
okay. Oh, yeah.
Do you? No left turn,
Well, apparently, but I go on it.
And
The neighbors have called about you.
So Morrison's really not a viable cut-through. If someone's looking to get out of the site and looking to avoid Ford Road, Morrison is not what they would choose. If they want to take a left onto Ford Road, there may be some traffic that meanders through the residential development, but as staff, we haven't been aware of any concerns of people calling or complaining. And there's currently not a no left turn sign that's at Morrison. So if the sign ever existed, then I don't know when it was removed. If there's any traffic westbound, there are times, believe it or not, you can take a left onto Ford Road and still make it. For myself, if I'm going westbound and it's on a Saturday or a peak time, I'll make my way over to Lilly Road and queue up there. So Morrison, not really something that people would use, and I don't think traffic would increase or cut-through traffic would increase on account of having a restaurant in this building. So those are some reasons why the removal of those conditions is recommended by staff. What we put in our staff review is a strike-through version of how we would recommend having those conditions reviewed. The strike-through in condition number 1 with the no left turn sign. There's part of that condition that allows the Planning Commission to require a physical barrier to create right turn out, left turn only entrance there at Morrison. That would be a huge undertaking that I don't think would be worth the trouble, just because it would have the opposite effect of keeping people outside of the Morrison neighborhood from making a left back into their neighborhood. So for that first condition, we recommend retaining no additional access to Morrison. We'll improve and utilize the access with the existing office building, which has taken place. The other is the 5th condition that prohibits a restaurant. We recommend striking that and putting the word repealed, just so that the list of conditions keep their numbering, because there are subsequent conditions after condition number 5. We've gone through and we've made findings in accordance with 27.06D4 of the zoning ordinance regarding the rezoning criteria. We won't go through all 10 of them with you, just because this is an amendment to an existing conditional rezoning. That will conclude staff's comments. This is a item that requires a public hearing. Staff has not received any inquiries, emails, letters for the public hearing from the public on this matter.
Thank
So
you.
with that, we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Is the project sponsor here? Would you like to add anything to what Patrick just said? All right. Yes, would you?
Yes, I move we open.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Eggenberger and support by Commissioner Weber to open the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Awesome.
Hi, I'm John Hawkinson. I represent Canton Corners Ford Road LLC, which is owned by Showstack Brothers. We bought the property back in 2013. We weren't aware of this condition in the amendment And we've had a restaurant in there before that must have been an oversight or a glitch or something. And now we have a new tenant to take the AAA's lease expired, they moved out. We have a new signed restaurant tenant that wants to go into that space and build out a nice spot there. And he went in for his reoccupancy zoning application, which all new tenants have to do that in a vacancy, and was told that this condition doesn't allow restaurants. So here we are today. And I just want to thank Patrick for helping me get through this and hopefully clean it up.
Thank you.
That's it. Thanks.
Would anyone else like to say anything about this, the proposal?
I move to close the public hearing.
Great, we have a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Foster. Any, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, I'm going to start with Commissioner Janowski this time. Okay. Commissioner Cruz.
What kind of restaurant's going on? What kind of chicken? Okay.
Bird's Hot Chicken, for the record.
So,
Not a drive-through either.
Okay. Just the only question I have is, like Outback, they don't have an agreement where they have their own parking. It's all shared parking, is that correct? That's all I got.
Commissioner Foster.
I don't have any comments, thank you, but chicken sounds good.
Anything sounds good right now. Commissioner Weber.
I don't have any comments for or against, but I do have a question though, and it's kind of the same question I asked when we were going through a glut of car washes and storage facilities coming to Canton. I assume you guys do market analysis on what's going to fly and all that sort of thing in a given area, correct?
Chickens don't fly.
Just seems like we're getting inundated with a lot of chicken restaurants, not just in Canton, but in the general area. I hope it's successful for you.
Very popular.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yeah, I have no concerns except a lot of chicken. Yeah, that's no problem with it.
No comment.
Commissioner Lee? No? Okay. Commissioner Watkins?
No questions, Madam Chair, but I've been to the Novi location. It's pretty good.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Excellent. All right, well, I don't have any concerns about this. I don't see why we shouldn't grant these changes to the conditions. So anybody want to make a motion?
I have, Madam Chair. I move to recommend approval of the request to amend the conditional rezoning statement of conditions on parcels number 054-99-0001-701, known as 42911 and 42927 Ford Road, so that the first and fifth conditions read as follows. 1, no additional access to Morrison Road, will improve and utilize the access with the existing office building. And then 5, repealed is the new word. The proposal meets the standard of section 27.064 of the zoning ordinance as stated in the staff report.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Watkins and support by Commissioner Lee. Any further discussion? All right, Commissioner Eggenberger, would you call the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Cruz? Yes. Commissioner Eggenberger? Yes. Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Janowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
And Chairperson Zuber?
Yes. Motion carries. So next step, Patrick.
The next step, because it's an ordinance amendment, this will go to the Township Board of Trustees for a final vote. And because it's an ordinance amendment, it requires 2 readings. So the next available board meeting, I think, is early October. So we may have a first reading early October and a second reading as early as mid to late October, whenever that next meeting in October is.
Okay, very good. And in the meantime, what does the tenant and landlord do? They have to wait?
Yeah, we'll hold the zoning compliance, and then if the rezoning is adopted, then we can proceed with zoning compliance, and at which point the applicant can proceed with their permit applications.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, good luck, sir. Can you, sir, I'm sorry, the public hearing is over, so you can reach out to Patrick separately if you don't mind. Thank you. All right. All right. That is true. Thank you for doing that for us. The third item on our agenda for a public hearing is item number 033-SLU-8352 and 033-ADS-8353. And this is Papaya Fruit Market. We're considering special land use and site plan for parcel number 033-99-0009-711, which is also known as 6463 North Canton Center Road. The property is located on the west side of North Canton Center Road and north of Hanford Road. The proposed outdoor display and sales area to the east side, we're considering a proposed outdoor display and sales area on the east side of the building, including a new canopy and overhang. Patrick, please tell us more.
Sure, thank you. The site is illustrated on the screen here. It's an aerial photo, and the parcel is outlined in yellow. And there's a red marker here of where the proposed changes in the shopping center. And it's an existing shopping center use. And Papaya is the anchor tenant, I would say, within that shopping center. And that's where this red indicator is located. And the shopping center, it includes Alamere, Jimmy John's, Menchie's, a number of other businesses as well, Jungle Java. And so Papaya moved in, I think it's been a couple of years, and it's a grocery store. And in the front of the building on the east side, they've been conducting some seasonal sales, and they want to have more of a permanent area for seasonal sales. Something that would allow some year-round use and to allow for a longer duration than the ordinance allows within a 60-day period. The zoning ordinance allows seasonal sales permits, but there's a maximum of 60 days in a calendar year. So fireworks sales, Lowe's and Home Depot, when they do their outdoor sales, those are limited to 60 days in a calendar year, or 2 30-day permits, which are often stacked on top of each other. In talking with the owner of the shopping center in terms of some of what their plans are in terms of the outdoor seasonal sales and making that longer than 60 days, we looked at a comparable shopping center being Bush's at the southeast corner of Cherry Hill and Canton Center. And Bush's has an outdoor display. It's technically it's sales of seasonal items, but it's not limited to 60 days. And the reason in looking through that file is it received special land use approval for outdoor display. And one of the conditions of that is that the outdoor display area has an enclosure. It has covering. Doesn't have to be a complete covering, but something that's got a lattice or something above and something that has an enclosure around it. That makes it more of a bona fide accessory use to a grocery store use. So in looking at the precedent of how the Bush's area was created and administered, that was done through special land use permit for outdoor display of materials. So in this case, this is also in the C2 Community Commercial Zoning District. So our recommendation to the applicant was, if you want to have a long-term outdoor seasonal display, then we recommend having a covering and an enclosure, or something that's permanent. And so the applicant has submitted plans proposing to extend the canopy outward and to put a permanent enclosure both above and around. It's not going to be completely enclosed where it's a walled-in building. It's going to be open air, but there are going to be bollards. There are going to be a perimeter boundary around it, and then a permanent canopy. It will have display of for sale items inside the store. Also, it shows an area for a cart corral. So right now there are cart corrals that are out in the parking lot. This would allow convenient access of a cart corral adjacent to the building, both for someone who's picking up a cart or for someone who's returning a cart on the way out. So that will help with cart maintenance a little bit. In looking at the special land use standards, really it's just looking at the impact on the surrounding area. The Zoning Board of Appeals last month approved a variance to allow for outdoor seasonal sales to be less than 250 feet from a residential area. In our seasonal sales, part of our zoning ordinance, there's a requirement that temporary or seasonal sales be not less than 250 feet from a residential area. In this case, the seasonal sales are on the east side of the building and the residential district is on the west side of the building. That was a variance that was granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals after a duly noticed public hearing. There were some concerns from adjacent neighbors about that. Most of them were related to the existing operations of the grocery store and the administration of like loading, garbage disposal, lighting, things like that that are related to the grocery store and not the seasonal sales operations on the east side of the site. Those are more accessory in nature. The applicant had applied also for a variance to allow for outdoor seasonal sales to go more than 60 days in a calendar year. The Zoning Board of Appeals had postponed action on that request, mainly because there's a pending special land use application to have a more permanent solution to that, where if there's a permanent covering, there's an enclosure, and if there's a special land use granted, then a seasonal sales annual permit would not be required because there would be an approved plan with a special land use that allows that year round, just like it is at Bush's. In terms of the parking and the access management, the proposed canopy and overhang would result in the removal of 2 parking spaces. Currently, there is sufficient parking on the site, so there's no concern with the removal of the 2 parking spaces. The shopping center will have adequate parking, and that includes parking that is on the west part of the site near the Beaumont Urgent Care. It's part of the same parcel. Also, the zoning ordinance requires drive aisles to be at least 22 feet wide. On the plans illustrated, it shows a 20-foot wide drive aisle. So our recommendation is that that aisle be widened slightly by 2 feet so that it's 22 feet wide. The applicant has reviewed that and said that they're able to revise the plans quite easily to retain that 22-foot wide drive aisle. With the barrier-free spaces that are illustrated on the plan, before the seasonal sales were put on the site right now, there were 3 barrier-free spaces adjacent to the east side of the building. With the seasonal sales that are there with the reconfiguration, there's 1 barrier-free space located north of the seasonal sales area and 2 barrier-free spaces south of the seasonal sales area. So there have been 3 barrier-free spaces retained on the east side of the building. The plans proposed by the applicant still show 3 barrier-free spaces on that east side of the building. The proposed canopy would be consistent with the surrounding area, the land uses. The canopy itself is on the east side, so any kind of impact mostly is within the site itself. So we're looking at the drive aisle width, pedestrian access. We find that those criteria have been met. And again, any concerns with the west side and the northwest corner with regard to whether it's garbage, sanitation, loading, unloading, lighting, things like that, those are related to ordinance enforcement items, things that we've talked to ordinance enforcement about, not just for this site, but any site, especially where it relates to groceries and food service. So there are existing ordinances that relate to those types of things that we've received comment from on the west side of the site that we actively administer and enforce. So there's nothing that is new or that we see has changed as a result of the seasonal sales area. So I did want to mention that because in one of the items of correspondence that we sent today, there was a letter from an adjacent neighbor to the west. The comment was addressed towards the variance application and even cited the variance case number. That variance was approved about a month ago, but because some of those comments are in the context of the use itself, we wanted to share that with the Planning Commission just based on the timing when we received it. We also shared it with the applicant just to let the applicant and the Planning Commission know that we received the correspondence and that it's something that we can work with the site owner and with the Ordinance Enforcement Division as necessary. So that concludes our staff comments on the special land use and site plan applications. Our recommendation is approval as illustrated on the special land use and site plan for the reasons stated in our analysis, subject to all state, county, and township requirements, and subject to shortening the canopy and overhang to maintain a 22-foot wide drive aisle. That concludes our comments, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Project sponsor here? would you like to add anything to what Patrick just said? Sure. All right.
Michael Mackey, 23500 Ford Road, Dearborn Heights. I represent the property owner, Canton Center Crossing. We also have the tenant, Papaya, with us, and our architect who did a great job with the design. Thank you, Patrick, for the description, and thank you all for your time. Really, this is a conversation about organization and beautification of our center. What this is going to do is create more and better, more effective use of space, more efficient organization for the center. Although it's described as trying to extend seasonal sales, that's one aspect. Another aspect is a cart issue that a lot of shopping centers around the Canton community face with grocery stores. We're going to be adding another cart corral, which Patrick described as extremely convenient because it's going to be right at the door. So this is important. I think this will alleviate stresses for shopping goers throughout the day. And for concerns about what's happening on the west side of the building, it's a small space, and we hear our neighbors. We want to be a good neighbor. We've had discussions with our adjacent neighbors regarding issues in the past. We have strict rules and regulations on all of our tenants, honestly, Papaya specifically because of their specific use. And we've discussed what goes on back there, and we've put in countermeasures. We've fined them for certain things sometimes. We've had discussions with ownership sometimes, and they've been great in their response and providing opportunities to figure out what we can do better, what they can do better. And they are trying to be good neighbors as much as they can. I mean, they even changed their lighting strategy because a neighbor thought that it was too bright over near their house. They increased their pickup frequency for trash. We moved an enclosure a little bit farther away and added an extra brick enclosure, which costs money. This all costs money, right? And it's important. And we, as a project sponsor, we want to make sure we're hearing the community and doing whatever we can, because at the end of the day, we're a shopping center that services the community. We service really Sunflower. That's our main customer. So if Sunflower residents have a concern, we want to address it and do everything possible. Thank you.
Public hearing, so does anyone want to make a motion to?
I move to open the public hearing.
All right. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Lee to open the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Anyone else want to speak on behalf or in support or concern about this proposal?
I move to close the public hearing.
All right, once again, we have a motion by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Lee to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, any opposed? Excellent. All right, Commissioner Watkins.
Super, thank you, Madam Chair. Real quick, if I could, for the project sponsor and the site owner, if you could, what's happening right now at the site? If I drove out right now, what's staged in front of Papaya Market?
Right now, because we just got approved for a seasonal sales permit, in front of the entrance, and Patrick could show the picture if he has it, there are sale items being sold. And it's within a specific area that was approved by planning and the variance approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Does that answer your question?
It does, and I just wanted to ensure that, that the timing is right on. We haven't moved too quickly on staging in a spot that isn't approved at this point. So just want to make sure what we saw, and I've seen some emails go back and forth, what we see currently doesn't represent anything that's happening now that hasn't been approved at this table yet. So if that's been approved with an outdoor sales permit, and Patrick, I'm assuming that's true. Go ahead.
Yeah, it has, and there was a discrepancy there with the staff review during the course of our review of the seasonal sales permit, and there have been sale items out there for a while, and we've been working with the applicant, with the owner on bringing that into compliance. And one of those was in the course of reviewing the seasonal sales permit, we noted that we weren't able to proceed with that permit unless because of the distance from a residential district, the 250 feet. So they applied for a variance from that and obtained the variance. After the variance was approved, We reviewed the rest of the seasonal sales criteria in the ordinance, and staff had issued the permit, signed off on the permit, and the permit is valid through, I think, mid-October due to the 60 days. The discrepancy was that, like many seasonal sales permits, staff approved some of them if they've previously been approved by the Planning Commission, but no changes have been made. In this case, staff had made an error where there wasn't a previous seasonal sales permit that was approved by the Planning Commission, and staff had signed the permit, signed the plans, so that's something that should have gone to the Planning Commission, didn't. We've reached out to our chief counsel, and we're asking how we go forward with the administration of that since we've approved a plan. In hindsight, that seasonal sales permit would be going to the Planning Commission for the Planning Commission review. So my apologies for that. That's on me. I can say that when we reviewed it, we made sure that it complied with the seasonal sales requirements of the zoning ordinance, including the setback and where they had to get a variance. We've coordinated with the engineering division, the building inspection services division, and the fire department to ensure that those divisions were satisfied with the operation. And the seasonal sales permit will expire in October, and it's not precedent setting. So if this special land use, for example, is not approved and they want to do a 60-day seasonal sales next year, this would for sure come to the Planning Commission for review of a seasonal sales.
Got it. Last question. What's the timeline on the canopy build? And then do you intend to have items out, I guess, winter or, I don't know. I mean,
We're gonna, I think the next step, if we get approval by your commission, would be to go to the Board of Trustees in October. So pending that meeting, we would hire a contractor and start to build, but the winter's coming. So we'd have to figure out what that timeline looks like. And I can let if you'd like to hear from the tenant, talk about a little bit more what their plan would be to actually sell under there, but there are pumpkins during Halloween, flowers in the spring, watermelons in the summer, things like that.
last piece, I did see high top tables in the rendering. Maybe that was something that, I don't know, maybe it was just put there, but I saw high top tables that were there. Is that for something or?
As part of kind of the beautification and effectiveness of the actual property itself, there's space for a little outdoor seating area that could be nice and used as a community area for not only the tenant, but everybody in the building, just like we do have on the, at Menchie's, if you've seen it. It's a very small area that's already kind of in an enclosure too.
No more questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee? No. Commissioner Eggenberger?
No questions.
Commissioner Watkins, or Weber, sorry. Got two of you here.
So, I mean, I have no issue with this, other than kind of following up on the question from Commissioner Watkins about this customer seating gathering area. That's all it is a gathering area. There's no plan for food or anything like that. I mean, I just want to make sure we're not getting into another potential use here that needs to be addressed. So, and you talked about it's a beautification thing. I question why is there seating for a beautification thing? It just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Please go to the mic, because otherwise you won't be recorded.
Sure, sorry. The intended use of the sales items under this canopy is in that specific area underneath the canopy and nowhere else. So that gathering area is really just a seating area for customers or shopping center goers and for nothing else.
Okay. Thank you. No
For
further
example,
questions.
Papaya sells food.
Thank you. Okay.
No
Okay.
other questions.
Commissioner Foster?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Cruz?
Just a couple things. Patrick, you said the 20 feet is going to be extended to 22 feet to meet the ordinance. How is the 2 foot, are you making the canopy smaller? Okay. The existing sidewalk, is that going to stay clear so people can walk through? Yeah.
Respond to that. Actually, this plan further, it hits on that point. Right now, carts are just being left on the sidewalk and intruding on people's ability to actually walk through a clear area. This organization will allow for customers to actually take their cart, put it in a corral that's conveniently located right there. You know, we all have a problem. It's kind of like a human problem that we leave shopping carts just in the wherever, right? But unless the cart corral is right next to us and conveniently located, so I could just easily, instead of just putting it here, oh, you know what, I'll just go put it right here. So instead of carts being in the way of the sidewalk, because of this canopy and plan, they will now have a place to put them.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that your sale items won't block the sidewalk.
No,
is what
it
I'm
will
saying.
not.
Okay,
Yeah. If you could see in the rendering, the specific area is beyond the sidewalk.
okay.
Yeah.
The last thing, is that going to be stamped concrete? Did I read that right? That surface?
Defer to the architect, exactly.
Well, the reason I bring it up is I've had 3 projects with stamped concrete, and when it rains, super slippery. It's just you'll have people slipping when they're walking there, just a consideration. That's it.
Noted. Thank you.
You have a further question, Commissioner Weber?
Yeah, just to kind of touch on what Commissioner Cruz was talking about with the canopy there and the sidewalk. Am I understanding the sidewalk won't be covered? Is that right?
The sidewalk will be covered, but it's going to be covered from in front of the building, but perpendicular, the sidewalk runs through, right? And that's not going to be, there's no intrusion there for people to walk underneath through the sidewalk.
I guess I'm not understanding your plan here, because that, pardon me?
Sorry,
This plan.
that's true as well, yeah. That portion of the whole sidewalk is actually covered throughout the whole shopping center.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Janowski?
When you go back to maintaining the clearance of 22, will you still maintain the front offset? One of my concerns about this area, you get that walkway out there. I don't even know how that happened, but the people just dump into that island that's out there is a grass island. So people would have to, if people are coming out there, they're going right into traffic. And it looks like you got about a 2 feet area where people can you could probably see if you're the traffic going north, you can see them. So the concern is the offset that you see from the bollard to the line.
To the overhang, you mean? To the
Yeah,
where the
to
columns
the
are?
overhang, or that secondary line there. Because you don't want to create a blind spot where people just get ran over.
No, that's noted, and we'll work with the building department on exactly what,
Make sure the offsets,
Exactly.
people can be seen.
for sure.
And I guess, I don't know, maybe the sidewalk serves as access, because ADA access, there's nowhere, people just go out right into a drive. There's
Yeah.
nowhere for them to go, so. That's my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't have any additional concerns over and above what everyone else has said, so thank you. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll do it, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
I move to recommend approval of the special land use and site plan amendment at 6463 North Canton Center Road, parcel 033-99-0009-711 for a canopy/overhang to cover and partially close an outdoor display area as illustrated on the special land use plans and site plan for the reasons stated in the above analysis, subject to all state, county, and township requirements and subject to shortening the canopy overhang to maintain a 22-foot wide drive aisle.
A commotion. We have a motion.
No, we had that earlier.
We had the commotion, yes, we did. We got through it, though. We have a motion by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Lee. Any further discussion? All right, Commissioner Eggenberger, please call the vote.
Okay, Commissioner Cruz. Yes. Commissioner Eggenberger, yes. Commissioner Foster.
Yes.
Commissioner Janowski. Yes. Commissioner Lee.
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
And Chairperson Zuber.
Yes, motion carries. All right, Patrick, next steps.
Next step will be for the applicant to go to the Board of Trustees, probably at the next available meeting in October, for consideration of the special land use and site plan amendment.
Excellent, thank you, gentlemen. All right, very good. Item number 4, another public hearing. We have 047-PDQ 8237, does that mean this will be quick if it's PDQ?
Keep your day, Jim.
I'm here all week. Item 047-SPP-8241 and item 047-SPC-8242, Top Canton LLC. We're considering final planned development district, site plan, and preliminary condominium for several parcels that I'm not going to read off, which are also known as 5910 Edinburgh Drive and 40150 Ford Road. I get tongue-tied when I get tired, I'm sorry. The property is located between Ford Road and Warren Road and between Interstate 275 and Lots Road. The proposed uses are fast food, drive-through restaurants, multi-tenant retail, and indoor-outdoor recreation facility, which is also called a golf driving range. Sorry, Patrick, could you tell us more?
Sure. Just wait for the reloading of the PDF. So it'll just take a moment. I give it credit for lasting as long as it did. Go. All right, perfect. And staff report. All right, here we go. So the applicant is proposing a final plan development district for a multi-use project on 55 acres at that subject site. And what's proposed is 2 fast food restaurants, Chick-fil-A and Portillo's along the Ford Road frontage, just north side of Ford Road, close to the frontage. And the applicant's proposing an indoor and outdoor golf driving range and rec facility located on the north side of the site, north of the woodland area here. And also part of the proposed development is to retain the existing multi-tenant shopping center to the east that includes the tile shop. There's one public access proposed to the site, which is the current driveway at Ford Road on the west side of the tile shop building. This site driveway is proposed to be reconstructed and widened to 4 lanes, and a traffic signal is proposed at the site drive intersection at Ford Road. The other proposed improvements on Ford Road include installing a westbound deceleration right turn lane at the site drive and converting the center lane west of the site drive to left turn lane into the site. The improvements in the Ford Road right-of-way are subject to MDOT review and approval. There's also an emergency-only access that's proposed at Warren Road. At the Planning Commission meeting on December 13th, 2023, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the preliminary PDD and postponed action pending review of additional information. Subsequently, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary PDD on January 8th of this year, subject to conditions. At its meeting on February 13th of 2024, the Canton Township Board of Trustees approved the Top Canton preliminary PDD, subject to 5 conditions. I'll go through each of the 5 conditions, and then I'll go into what some of the updates are, and then I'll wrap up the report after there, because you've seen this development a number of times, and so we can just focus on the previous conditions, what the changes have been, and where we are right now. When the preliminary PDD was approved, the first condition was that traffic improvements, including traffic signal and signal optimizations, must comply with the recommendations of the traffic impact study and Wade Trim, as well as requirements of MDOT, including investigation of a northern entry from Warren Road with conclusions approved by the township. Where we are with that, we've got some traffic study comments in our report, and we'll go into those in a little bit more detail in terms of where we are with those. In terms of the northern entry from Warren Road, there is maintained still emergency access only from that Warren Road access. The second condition that was approved in the preliminary PDD was that each fast food drive-through restaurant must have 1 loading space that complies with the zoning ordinance. For the fast food restaurants, They're proposing the loading spaces in the drive aisle adjacent to some employee-only parking. According to the applicants, there are deliveries that are off-hours deliveries. We've got some concerns about those in our review letter, and if there's going to be provisions for the time of deliveries and not interfering with parking, then we recommend including those provisions in the PDD agreement so that they're legally enforceable both by the township and by users of the site. The third condition is that a final decision on the installation of sidewalk along Warren Road frontage will be deferred to final PDD review. Right now, on the plans, there's no sidewalk proposed along the Warren Road frontage. Planning staff maintains that we recommend that there be sidewalk along that Warren Road frontage. Right now, along the south side of Warren Road, there is sidewalk gap, and in our sidewalk gap program, the south side of Warren is an area where we eventually want to have sidewalks. Also, there's the I-275 trail that's adjacent to the site to the west. There's also a walkway on the south side of the Warren Road overpass over 275. So there are some pieces in place there. I don't know if a sidewalk could ever connect to the I-275 trail. If we wanted it to, there is a process through the state to make an application. If there is a connection to the ramp, the overpass ramp, there would be some topography issues that would have to be worked out, but there are some adjacent terminations in sidewalk or pedestrian or non-motorized access on the east side of the site where eventually in the future in our plans, we do want to have sidewalk and non-motorized access along the frontage of the road. Our recommendation is that although there is steep topography on the north side, there are ways to have a sidewalk where the topography is not as much as an impediment by, say, for locating a sidewalk maybe at the bottom of the hill, or if there's an access easement needed on the property for a sidewalk, that could be provided for. So our position is maintained that we do recommend sidewalk on the north side of the site adjacent to the south side of Warren Road. The fourth condition of preliminary PDD approval was that a final decision on the proposed modifications to the sign standards of Article 6A of the zoning ordinance will be deferred to final PDD review, and the PDD agreement must explicitly state that the signs are on-premise signs that can only advertise on-site uses within the PDD. We're still working through our staff comments on the multi-tenant sign along I-275. I think we're much closer than we were during preliminary PDD. We have some follow-up questions for the applicant, but this is still something that we're working on, but I really don't have anything new to say about that other than what's in our staff report. We are working on it. I think we're making progress in terms of that sign, and we're hopeful in the next iteration of the plans, we'll either have a sign that complies with the multi-tenant standards or we'll have specifically what those modifications are that are being requested. And finally, the fifth condition of preliminary PDD was that a final decision on the proposed modification to the light standards would be deferred to final PDD review. The applicants have given us a photometric plan, but it hasn't been updated since the last review during PDD. One of the changes of the development, and I'll start to jump into those right now, is that the proposed development is now proposed in two phases. Phase one would be the fast food restaurants along Ford Road. Phase two would be the driving range, the Topgolf. So there are some site plan related details that are not included in the phase two for the driving range, and in the material that we have in the packet, there's not a photometric plan there, but I don't think it's changed substantially. But we would want to see those updated photometrics based on the new location of the driving range. Since the preliminary PDD was approved, the proposed hotel that was approved on the preliminary PDD, that hotel has been removed from the project, so that's no longer in consideration as part of this project. And as a result, the golf driving range that was located on the north end of the site has been moved southward accordingly. In some ways, there's benefits. In other ways, there's more questions. One of those questions is just having an updated photometric for that area to ensure that the standards of section 2.13 are met. So that's just information in addition to some other things in our staff report that we still need to see before we're comfortable making a recommendation affirmatively on this application. So getting into page 2 of our staff report, some of the major changes since preliminary PDD approval. We've already noted this, the 4-story hotel has been removed from the site. The golf driving range has been moved southward toward the previous location of the hotel building. With the removal of the hotel, the open space has increased by about, or up to about 35 or 38 and a half acres. So about 70% of that site is classified as open space. The reconfiguration of the site has increased wetland impacts from 7.9 acres to 9.41 acres. So there's some additional impacts in wetlands based on the new configuration of the site. I think it's moving that driving range southward has impacted more wetlands, even though it's resulted in more open space. So that's something that the applicant has worked with Eagle on in terms of wetland impacts and the permitting process. Another change, as we previously noted, the project is now proposed in 2 phases, the fast food restaurants in phase 1 and the driving range in phase 2. There's a cul-de-sac that's proposed that splits the 2 phases, and we've got some comments about that cul-de-sac in our report, mainly due to drive-through vehicle stacking and what may happen if the cul-de-sac starts to back up, and that deals more with the Chick-fil-A drive-through lane in terms of having auxiliary plans for additional stacking should it be warranted and if the cul-de-sac's not enough. As you recall, during the preliminary PD review, there was a drive that went all the way northward where cars could stack up, I think, roughly 1,000 feet if needed northward if there was a huge surge in activity for Chick-fil-A. Without that being proposed in phase 1, we're looking at other types of auxiliary stacking to make sure that we do everything in our power to make sure that the stacking does not back up onto Ford Road and it doesn't negatively impact the on-site circulation of the site and the road system as a whole. Another change since preliminary PDD review is that the Portillo's building has been reduced in size on the north side. So the eating space of the building has been reduced from over 4,000 square feet down to 2,477 square feet. So with that, that lowers the parking demand, and we've got some comments in our staff report that we recommend lowering the number of parking spaces because the number of required parking spaces are tied to the eating area. So if the eating area is lower, we would recommend minimizing those parking spaces. Some of the businesses, they may be a little unique where they might know their peak demands. So to the extent that we can minimize parking, that's something that we'd want to see. So we want to see some more calculations on how we can possibly achieve that. And finally, one change since preliminary PDD review was that 2 of the level 3 electric vehicle charger stations of those level 3s that were located along the road, 2 of those have been removed in front of the fast food restaurant locations and are replaced with EV-ready charging spaces, which means they're not installed. There's not the capacity there for charging, that they would be EV-ready, but it would take a future installation and equipment to make those operational. Instead of having 2 level 3 EV charging spaces at each of the 2 fast food restaurant locations, there's now 1 level 3 EV station installed and 1 level 3 EV ready charging space at each of the fast food restaurants. The final item that I want to note in our staff report, because it's a long report and I don't want to go through everything since we've been through it before, but the last item I do want to go over is the traffic impact study. The traffic impact study notes deficiencies at nearby intersections, and it notes that the level of service as well as the time delays at the intersections, notably Ford and Lots, will continue to worsen as a result of the development. The traffic impact study compares the background conditions currently, the background conditions in 5 years without the development, and the conditions in 5 years with the development. And there's a pretty big difference in some of these areas that we note in our report between in the future with or without the development, showing that the development is going to cause additional delay at the intersection of Ford and Lots, as well as in other areas based on the items noted in our staff report. The traffic impact study that was previously submitted did indicate that the movements at Warren and Haggerty, Ford and Lots could operate at a level of service D or better during the peak periods with some upgrades. That includes optimizing the signal timing, That includes installing pedestrian push buttons. That includes installing a southbound right turn overlap signal at Ford Road and Lots Road, optimizing the signal timing during all the periods. So there's a number of recommendations in their traffic study that do indicate that it could operate at a level of service D or better with upgrades. With the traffic study showing that the delays will worsen, both in terms of the time and in some cases the level of service letter. Because of those, and there's no mitigation or no plan to address those delays that are a result of the development, our recommendation on this application is postponing the application pending receipt of that information that satisfies not just the previous conditions of approval and the recommendations of the traffic study, but there are also standards of review in the ordinance related to PDDs in terms of impacts on traffic, impacts on public infrastructure, impacts on future development of surrounding areas. So there are certain findings that have to be made in the review of the PDD standards that we're not able to make affirmative findings on based on the deficiency of the traffic study and any deficiency of plan to address the traffic concerns noted by the study. There's an accompanying letter with the traffic study by Fleece and Vanderbrink that tries to explain their point of view in terms of building the development and then monitoring as time goes on. But one of the problems with that is that if we just monitor something and the traffic worsens, then the time to implement a mitigation measure is when the development is implemented. And that's why we have a traffic study, so that we can identify what will happen based on that study and that we can take actions at the time the development's reviewed to try to mitigate those impacts. That's the purpose of having a traffic study. So the Fleece and Vanderbrink letter is kind of contrary to that, to say, yes, we did the traffic study, we know it's going to get bad, we know it's going to get worse, but let's just monitor it and not do anything now. So the two documents from Fleece and Vanderbrink, they contradict one another. I have more to say on that in the staff report, but I'll just leave it at that. So staff's recommendation is that, as noted above, the application materials either do not contain all the information required or they do not comply with the zoning ordinance provisions necessary for approval. Therefore, Planning Division staff recommends postponing action on the applications pending receipt and review of additional information noted in our review letter. We've prepared a model motion for the Planning Commission's consideration for postponing action. If there's any change to this motion or an alternate motion, we can work with the Planning Commission on preparing that this evening.
Thank you, Patrick. Is the project sponsor here? I see some familiar faces back there.
I move we open the public.
Thank you.
Support.
All right, we have a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Eggenberger and support by Commissioner Weber. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? All right, awesome. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you. Hi, nice to see you all. Steve Robinson with Broder and Saxey, 3663 Woodward, Detroit, Michigan. Thank you, guys. I know we have some open issues here, so I thought maybe I could just bring you up to speed on what's going on behind the scene with some of those issues, certainly with the traffic, which seems to be one of the more pressing issues. We met with MDOT. We've been going back and forth with MDOT for a year. Yeah, a long time. So I don't think there's any issues with the proposed intersection. I think we're all done there. With MDOT, the issue with Lots Road is kind of the open issue. So they've come back and asked us to do certain things. We had a meeting with them. What they're asking for is pretty minor in execution. You know, one guy told me it was $2,000. The other guy told me it was $15,000. And I said, I'll sign up for either one of those programs. But then the engineer standing in the room said, well, you got to replace the mast arms. And so it's not just put the right-hand turn signal up. They want us to evaluate and change all the mast arms. Well, the mast arms takes a $15,000 problem and turns into like a $300,000 problem. So we pushed back and said, listen, this intersection is a failing F right now. It's been that way. We're more than happy to fix what we're supposed to fix, but we don't think it's fair for you guys to put that kind of price tag on us just for a failing intersection. So we're trying to work with MDOT. I think MDOT had, was very understanding of our position, and we're looking into that. And that's the open issue there. As far as the hotel, we did lose the hotel to the EPA during our wetland review. They came back and, from an alternatives analysis, I think it came down to there were other spots you could put a hotel. There's no other spots for Topgolf as we worked our way through. That's where we lost the hotel. I don't know where the increased number came from on the wetlands in the report. We have not increased wetlands. I think we will have to figure out where that discrepancy came from. And we did, after EPA came back and walked the site and pushed back on the hotel, we did 11. I think we had a meeting with Eagle where we did 11 different alternatives. We sat down with them. The reason why we picked the alternative that we're pursuing, where we slid Topgolf farther to the south, is that was the preferred alternative by Eagle for a couple different reasons. But one, it allowed us to do some on-site mitigation on the site, and that was the main, which they liked. So that was why we went that plan. Other than that, we're just trying to button down some of the details that are still open. We bifurcated our wetland permits to be the 2 phases so that we could get this project rolling. We're almost 2 years into our wetland permit, so we're optimistic, but still on that journey.
Okay, thank you. Members of the public want to speak about the project?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Eggenberger and support by Commissioner Weber to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Awesome. All right. I'm going to start with Commissioner Janowski. Commissioner Cruz.
Is there an access off of Sandhurst Street?
Yes,
Where?
there's an easement behind the tile shop.
Okay, so customers can actually use that Sandhurst Street that's allowed by this development,
And
correct?
the apartments will be able to come through and use the light.
Okay. I'm going to reiterate my same concerns. This is a lot of development for one driveway. And I don't care what that traffic study says, it's a lot of development. I'm okay with the traffic being in the site, but when it comes to Ford Road, I am concerned about that. As Patrick has said, I mean, the Fleece and Vandenbrink attitude of let's wait and see how it goes, I don't believe that one bit. I mean, what kind of engineering judgment is that?
I can explain that if you want me to.
Yeah.
I mean, the issue has been for us is that, we feel like they've been putting the Lots Road problem on us because the Lots Road was a pre-existing condition. So I think that Julie's letter was more of a pushback to MDOT on that point. We've since relented. We had a great meeting with MDOT I think it was last week, and we're making good progress. So I think we're all on the same page now. Where we seems like every time we submitted something to MDOT, they came back and asked us for more. We submit, come back for more. I mean, it's just been they kind of apologized to us in the last meeting that it's really been dragging out. So there was a little frustration that might have come behind that letter.
Okay. My other concern is, the 2-lane roadway going to Topgolf. You can't turn around, I still feel it should be wider, but I get the concern, the challenge of the wetlands. The first phase, you're gonna build a cul-de-sac for queuing, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
For an overflow queue. So we had in our previous plan, we had an overflow plan that went up the road and came back down around.
Yeah.
And so since we can't go up and down, we're doing a cul-de-sac. So if it's backed up, they're just gonna have to send their customers back out again. They're not gonna be placed to queue onto the site. I mean, we're not particularly worried about it at this penetration of Chick-fil-A into the market. With the number of stacks we have, we're not very concerned about it anymore. I don't think they are either, but we're prepared for it just in case.
Why not build a longer road and end the cul-de-sac? Is there a challenge with that?
I need a wetland permit to do that.
Okay.
We bifurcated this so that we could bifurcate the wetland permit application.
Okay. That's all I got.
Thank you. Commissioner Foster?
Thank you. Just brief comment. I'm very excited about the prospect of bringing Top Canton to our community, but as Commissioner Cruz said, I am concerned about the traffic on Ford Road, so I hope that you are able to work out those issues with MDOT.
Weber?
I pretty much echo what Commissioner Foster just said. I really want this project to happen. Disappointed the hotel had to go away. I do have, what's the rationale in reducing the size of the Portillos?
Sorry, what was the
What is the rationale of reducing the size of the Portillos?
It's their new prototype.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with us.
It was their decision?
That's their
Okay.
decision, yeah.
Had nothing to do with trying to fit it into the site or anything like that? Okay. I echo the same concerns about the traffic. I really wish there was a secondary access that could be found in this development. I think it can be, but I've made those comments before. But that's where I'll leave it for now.
Thank you. Commissioner Eggenberger?
Thank you. I agree, we need to figure out what's going on with the traffic and get more information there, certainly. I understand frustration with MDOT, we're often frustrated ourselves, but that doesn't end, I mean, we have to figure it out. And I don't know how you're gonna figure it out. One entrance with all of this going in? I agree with Commissioner Weber. I think you should try and figure out another route too, but that's just my thoughts on it.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee?
Yes, this one is, I just got a question to see how you're thinking about it. I come into the one lane, and I'm going up, and I realize Chick-fil-A is too full, or Portillo's too full. How do I get out of the site? How would I get out of the site if all I want to do is go in and I say, this is too full, I can't stay here. I got to get out of the site. How would you get out of the site?
Take the cul-de-sac and turn around and
So
come
the
back.
cul-de-sac is intended to catch that traffic and get it to go back around. Is that right?
I guess I'm not following.
Okay, I'm here and I get to the lane and I say, you know, this is too full. I can't go through this line. I'm
Yeah.
stuck, right? Am I stuck?
No, you're gonna go to the cul-de-sac, you know, if they have an overflow plan, like we did before, Chick-fil-A is gonna have to staff that entrance and, you know, as they do with other restaurant openings, and send people back out of the site.
They're gonna send them out.
Yeah.
So you won't get trapped. Because it's queues 52 cars, right?
Yeah, that's a
That's what I
lot of-
read.
that's
I
a
know,
lot
it's a
of
lot of
queues.
cars.
Did you get stuck in that queue?
Yeah, that's how I'm thinking. My grandkids, they say, I want Chick-fil-A.
You gotta commit, Clarence.
And I gotta sit in here with 52 cars. I got a meeting. I can't wait that long.
with you.
How do I get out is what I'm concerned
What are
about.
you doing with your grandkids on the way to a meeting?
Well, they told me to get Chick-fil-A on the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good grandpa.
How do you get
I
out of this?
am.
Well, you would
But
just
I'm gonna
you'd
say I can't do it.
Turn around at the cul-de-sac and go back out.
But you see where I'm saying, though? Because if you're in the queue,
Oh, if you're in the queue,
you're in the queue, and you gotta get out, you're stuck.
Why would anyone want to get out of the queue?
Because I gotta go.
We gotta go.
Don't
Or I
get
may
in the
have to
queue.
go.
that would have to
You
be,
see what I'm-
that would have to be the staff shuffling cars to get a car that was mid-queue.
You would
out
have to
back
get
out.
physical, you would have to get people to help you get out. is
Yeah,
what
somebody from
That's
the restaurant would have to.
bothers me.
That's the problem with just the lane.
That bothers me. That's one of my concerns. That hit me the day after I saw this, the first time, which is my very first meeting. But that hit me. I said, that doesn't work. That's what I said. Those are just my personal comments, but I want you to think about it. Because if I'm stuck in queue with 52 cars, that's a long time. Even if the service is great and the chicken is good, okay? Thank you, that's all.
Commissioner Watkins?
All right.
End up talking about our stomach.
Chicken again.
Mr. Robinson, good to see you, man. So I hate that MDOT's giving you such a hard time and stretching out this project. in your talks and in your tete-a-tete with MDOT, did anybody talk about Warren Avenue and how we can do something at the north here?
Well, there's a lot of dynamics in play on the north. You know, we have access issues. We have that would create eagle issues with the wetlands. I don't know how to better, more sensitively talk about this, but we're doing everything we can. I don't see us being able to make the Warren Road connection in the short term.
Thank you. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think everybody, you guys have expressed my concerns too, the traffic, the single point of access, you know, these are concerns that we all share, so. But we want to see this developed, so, you know, can. So who wants to make a motion?
I can do it, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I move to postpone action on the final PDD application, site plan application, and preliminary condo application, application number 047-PDQ-8237, number 047-SPC-8242, and number 047-SPP-8241, pending receipt and review of the following items to determine if the standards of the zoning ordinance are met in the application. 1, a revised PDD agreement, including the showing of the 2 phases. 2, the revised master deed and the bylaws. 3, the updated traffic information pursuant to the traffic impact study in accordance with the zoning ordinance. And then 4, addressing the PDD and site plan comments noted by township staff. And 5, addressing the conditions of the preliminary PDD approval. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Support. We have a motion by Commissioner Watkins and support by Commissioner Foster. Any further discussion? Commissioner Eggenberger, could you call the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Cruz? Yes. Commissioner Eggenberger, yes. Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Janowski? Yes. Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
And Chairperson Zuber?
Yes. Motion carries. Patrick, next steps, please.
Next steps are, so we've had the public hearing tonight, so there's no need to have another public hearing. We'll continue working with the applicant on a number of things. As information gets updated, we'll push to get on future agendas. I know the traffic info is a lot, and if at a future meeting, if we're still waiting on some traffic information, but we think that we can have substantive discussions on some other things unrelated to traffic where planning commission meeting may be helpful, then we'll try to get those meetings on as soon as we can. So we'll continue to work with the applicant on traffic info, and we have periodic meetings with MDOT as well. So we'll discuss with MDOT from the township standpoint to see if there's anything that we can do to help. And then if we have any information from MDOT we can bring back here, we'll do that.
So we'll see more huge planning commission packets
Yes.
in the future.
Can they
Yes.
reduce the
This one-
size of the traffic study report?
This was 1,026 pages long tonight, just for the record.
And most of it was this project.
Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you. Good luck.
Not your fault.
No, no. All right. Very good. Now we are into the second phase of our hearing, which is old business. We have none. All right, awesome. Let's move right along to new business. We have item number 5 is 033-DIR-8143. That is Country Plaza Crossing. We're considering a site plan for parcel number 033-99-0009-004, which is also known as 6567 North Canton Center Road. The property is located on the west side of North Canton Center Road between Hanford and Warren, and they are making proposed facade changes. Patrick, please tell us more.
Sure, thank you. The applicant has recently had a site plan review approved for some facade changes that have been administratively approved by staff. The zoning ordinance allows for facade changes or site changes that don't substantially change the original approval, and there's a number of different thresholds there. So there were some facade changes, some of which are ongoing, that were approved by staff for the building several months ago. One of the recent changes that's proposed by the applicant is the applicant had discussed coloring the brick and first discussed painting the brick. And so we had stated, as we have to many commercial applicants that want to paint the brick is that staff doesn't favor that because some of the impacts the paint has on the brick. Paint encapsulates the brick and traps in moisture. So when we go through our freeze-thaw cycle and that moisture is trapped in the brick, it can damage the brick, can chip the paint. And also the painting, it also provides a uniform color for the brick and the mortar. So if brick is painted and there's no distinction between the brick and the mortar, it kind of loses its appeal, the brick does, and it looks more like a poured concrete wall that's formed rather than a masonry building. So in working with the applicants, one of our planners, Zach Michelle's, had a great idea in terms of a suggestion for applicants who want to color the brick but not with paint. And so Zach had mentioned looking into lime washing. And to be honest, it's not anything I'd really heard about, but we've done some research on it. And the applicant has done probably even more research on lime washing and has come up with a proposal to lime wash the brick on the shopping center here and to do so in a way that enhances some of the character of the brick, where there's a distinction between some of the brick colors as well as the mortar, but not doing something like a painting that has the impact that a paint does. So a lime washing on a brick allows the brick to still breathe. It allows the opaque coloring of the brick and the grout lines to appear through different shades of the applied lime wash. Based on our reviews, it depends on the type of shade and the percentage of I guess, the pigment that's there. A lot of different factors, but lime wash is something that, looking at, they're mostly residential applications, but there are a number of commercial applications out there where it's been used. And it's one way that brick can be colored, but not have some of those negative impacts that painting does. So it's something that's interesting, something for this building we recommend approval of, but because it is a significant change to the facade and it's nothing we've considered from a staff review standpoint before, this is a decision that we want to have presented to the Planning Commission and deferred for Planning Commission action. So I'll leave it there. We've provided some photographic examples and renderings from the applicant that the applicant can speak to. And that concludes our staff report. Be happy to take any questions.
Good, thank you. All right, project sponsor, we saw you earlier this evening, I believe. You look really familiar.
Yeah, I was just around.
Yes.
Michael Mackey, 23500 Ford Road, Dearborn Heights. So this is the actually adjacent parcel to the Papaya building we were just talking about. We purchased this a year ago, a few days ago. And the whole plan here is create somewhat of a retail environment that's extending on Canton Center. It's developing great. It's servicing a good community. Papaya Center was Planet Fitness. Papaya, Elamir, Menchie's, Jimmy John's is doing really well. What was the next step? The next step was trying to purchase this land and building. And we did. And that's awesome. It's great. The building was very undermanaged, so we saw a good opportunity there. It was, seasoned. Ugly.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
Seasoned.
And
I heard that before.
it needed a significant capital investment. So the first thing that we did was go to the planning department and speak with Patrick and his team and the building department about what can we do here. And if you remember what this building looked like, our plans are underway and we're probably 80% there, but this building looks a lot better now. And we're really bringing it up to the times. There is half of the building's brick, but the whole south side or the whole north side of the building is all brick. So that is the significant portion of that 50%. On the other side, it's a lot of windows, as you can see. So it's just really a smaller portion of the brick that we want to do something with. It's an old, ugly red, and it doesn't fit with kind of our modern rendering. I actually had the designer render up a plan that if we kept our panels and our wood features and left the brick as is, it would look really weird. Understand completely that we don't want to paint brick. And the planning department had this really cool idea that we further investigated, and it really is a brick enhancement. is what we're finding out about it. We've talked to experts that do this. There's not an expert around here that does it. It was very difficult to find somebody with the experience that the planning commission would probably want to have or approve to do it. The planning department would agree to with. We were actually considering flying someone out from Rochester, New York to do it. Just recently, we found somebody more local, and we think it's going to be really nice for the building. It's going to complete the look, and it's going to treat the brick appropriately. Right, and it's a significantly more expensive route than paint. So I just want to put that out there. We're doing whatever we can to adhere to the rules and regulations of the township and the integrity of the building, for sure.
It's going to look a whole lot better because that has been an eyesore.
Yeah, and you know, the tenants were interesting. And in order to get new, great tenants for the community, we had to propose this, right? And part of that was changing the brick. And, you know, I guess I wasn't smart enough at the time to know that can't do it. But here we are. And I'm trying to get this approved so that Cargo Coffee can come in. It's a national franchise. They're really excited about their plans. Hello Pizza just opened a few weeks ago. They're doing great. And then the laundromat has been a kind of a staple to the community for a long time, and we want to keep them going as well.
Patrick, do you have the email that you sent earlier? Because I can't open the PDFs on my iPad for some reason.
Yes.
The one that shows the different lime wash. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We ran some samples, and this was a few days ago. As you can see, it doesn't look like a concrete poured wall. You could see the grout lines. You could see the brick. You can actually see the texture behind it. If you look from left to right, it's really two different colors. It's white and gray. From the left-hand side, it's white at 50% transparency, so less transparent to see the actual brick behind it. As you can see to the right, as you move, more transparency, you're seeing more of that natural look. Gray at 50%, gray at 70%. We haven't figured out exactly what we're going to do here. We want to bring it to the commission, get approved, and then hopefully get approved, and then figure out exactly which color. But I'm leaning towards more transparency, a little bit more gray. So it does look a lot less like a poured wall. All the way to the right. It's going to be a cool look, and honestly, it's probably something that would look good on other buildings as well. That brick looks old and ugly, and you can't really do anything about it.
At this point, I can just state for the record for anyone who may watch this afterward, is that within a few days of application, lime wash can be washed off of the building, it can be removed, and this sampling is in an area of the building near the rear with utility equipment. So if you're going to sample in any area, this is the area to sample in. So I'm glad we have the samples, I'm glad we have them, but for anyone who may be looking at a future painting or some recoloring the brick, this is just sampling, it can be removed. So this is not like, you know, an implicit approval for anyone else to go and start putting paint on brick, because this is a sample and it's a removable product. So just letting the record
Did
state
you hear
that.
that, Beaumont?
Beaumont?
Just kidding. Wasn't the
That was me
outbuilding-
too.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was the tenant. That was.
I know.
I'm sorry.
No, didn't mean that for you.
By water, you mean like actively taking it off with water. It's not going to come off when it rains.
I think there's I don't know if it's just water within a certain number of days based on our research, but after a certain number of days, then it's not as removable, then it's part of it.
Oh, okay. All right, very good.
Anybody have feedback or comments? I'm just going to open it up to the board.
I will just say that I like the diplomatic use of the word.
Yeah. I've gotten myself into trouble before.
I think this is going to look really nice.
It looks great.
So the laundromat stand?
As of now, yeah. I'm actually operating it. It's fun.
I'm just curious, I don't know if you want to state why. I'm just curious about your comment that you say the tenants were interesting to deal with. Just wondering what.
I don't think this is the time for
When I say interesting, they were underperforming. I think there was better uses of the space in the location it's currently in.
Okay,
Those
that's
tenants
fair.
were all great people.
That's fair.
One thing I like to ask, if this is removable, when does it get to the point where it just stays permanent? How long does that take, and do you have to keep it dry for a certain period of time? Do you know already or not?
I don't specifically know the answer to that. The painters who have experience relate to me that this is able to be removed within a specific time frame, but it's definitely, you've seen this application around neighborhoods everywhere.
Probably, but
You have, right? And we have, but we just don't know about it.
Yeah, it said in the spec sheet that you sent us, the technical data sheet, that you want it to, you don't want to do it before a heavy rain. You know, so it looks like, I mean,
Dry days.
yeah,
all right.
it's like a heavy driving rain was, I think it said something along those lines.
I don't think there's really a concern of it not being permanent.
Well, it says full class calcification of the lime wash is reached in 20 to 25 days at the earliest, after initial application under ideal conditions.
Yeah, and that's,
68 degrees Fahrenheit.
probably, so,
Well, I
anyway,
think
it's
this is a good
fascinating.
idea. Is it time to vote on it?
I think whenever someone wants to make a motion.
It's Nancy's bedtime.
Why don't you make a motion, Nancy? Be proactive here.
Nancy, did you not listen to my advice today?
It's all quarters. We're working to enhance that, so.
I move to approve the site plan amendment and planning application 033 DIR-A143 at 655-6575 North Canton Center Road on the subject parcel 03399
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Eggenberger and support, but was that Commissioner Watkins?
I thought it was Janowski.
Oh, Janowski, I'm sorry, the opposite end of the dais. Okay, very good, sorry, I wasn't looking. We have motion by Commissioner Eggenberger, support by Commissioner Janowski. Any further discussion? Commissioner Eggenberger, could you call the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Cruz?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger, yes. Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Janowski? Yes. Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
And Chairperson Zuber?
Yes. All right, motion carries. I look forward to seeing the final building design.
Thank you. Should be done in a month.
Thank you for really making this look a lot nicer.
Oh, it's huge.
We think it's mutually beneficial. It's self-servicing or for-profit business, but at the end of the day, this is really good for the community and the location it's in, we think.
I'm excited for the coffee shop to open.
It's an awesome franchise. We flew out to Tampa just to try it, and they are Italian-based, so it's Lavazza brand that you've probably seen around. And all their pastries are imported from Italy, so we're excited about it. They're opening up around Michigan right now.
We have another great coffee shop right there.
Matari is a Yemeni-style coffee shop that's fantastic as well. It's a little bit different, so that's good.
Yeah,
More offering.
good. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for your patience tonight, too.
Yeah, thank you.
Coffee while I wash my comforter. Perfect.
I mean, what more? What more could
Big
you?
comforter.
Awesome.
Wow, okay.
And you could get your car washed behind the
There you
building.
go.
Just down the street.
Okay.
All right, well, we have one more item. We're almost done.
Don't we have, doesn't Aaron have anything to do tonight?
People
No.
don't do a good job. We're gonna have a lot of questions. here.
I'm not letting Aaron
Lot of
talk tonight.
slackers on this one.
All right, item number 6, new business 071-SPX-8363. We have Cherry Hill Village Town Square Park. Consider site plan on parcels, I'm not reading those, 3 of them. The property is located on the northwest corner of Cherry Hill Road and North Ridge Road. This is proposed park improvements for Town Square Park, which I am very excited about. We are going to get a hill at Cherry Hill.
With a cherry on top.
Are we getting a cherry on top? Patrick, please tell us more.
All right, well,
I'm not getting punchy at all up here. Not at all.
Well, I'll be brief.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is located at the northwest corner of Cherry Hill and Ridge Road. And we're joined tonight by John Lefevre, Community Development Director, Jeanette Aiello, Canton Township Project and Operations Supervisor, and Claire Martin from OHM Engineering Advisors. They've been working on this project. They're overseeing the project and managing it. So everything in our staff report, I won't summarize and go over everything there. The comments are there. There's some relatively minor site plan review comments that we're working with OHM kind of offline just to fine tune some things, but nothing substantial regarding the overall development. So I'll end it there and then defer to the community development staff and to OHM engineering advisors. Our staff recommendation is approval of the site plan for the site improvements, subject to all state, county, and township requirements, except any modifications that we note pursuant to section 4.01C6 of the ordinance for the number of on-site parking spaces, and modifications recommended pursuant to section 2.16B of the zoning ordinance for the monument signage. Thank you.
I like how the plan of the hill makes it look like we're going to follow the Yellow Brick Road. Yeah.
You didn't know we were?
Thank you. Please tell us more, Jeanette.
Thank you all for having us. I'm Jeanette Aiello, the Project and Operations Supervisor for the Community Development Department. And I'm joined with Claire Martin from OHM Advisors, and we've been with you all for several meetings in the past couple years planning all these wonderful Cherry Hill Village projects. The town square at Cherry Hill Village it's bringing people together. We've spent a lot of time trying to find what's the right fit for bringing people together. We have Heritage Park. We have ZB Nature Area that's in the works as soon as the funding portion is completed. But we really don't have a good gathering space for people to come and stay and play for a long period of time. And that's kind of where we have kind of set our goals for through all of this. 20 years ago, they just had the celebration at the Cherry Hill Village Theater, kicking off celebrating 20 years of having the village get started down there. And we never really had that big boom of having people want to really experience all that they could possibly experience down there. And when we went into this agreement with Wayne County for ARPA, we wanted to make sure we really activated that space and created a space that is unique, and it really drives business and it drives livelihoods and really people want to experience. And so OHM has done a fantastic job of listening to all of the different input opportunities that have been there. We've worked with planning through the master planning process, and we're preserving the Cherry Hill School as one of our main focal points, and just north of it, the Human Services Building. Those two structures will stay. And then we have a lot of different pathways through here, but a lot of lawn and space for people to gather so that we can have community events, we can have spaces for concerts, we can have outdoor movies, but also if you just want to go for a walk, there's routes and space for you to do that. And we are going to put a hill in there, hopefully with a cherry on top or some other art piece. But the stormwater detention ponds that are just to the north of it, we know that there's going to be concern about the neighbors being right there. There's two homes right there. And they have a landscape plan that they're working on to help with the screening and help create that buffer zone to the neighbors. We even brought the walking pathway inward so that we were further off the property line and weren't impeding as much on that. There's going to be several different areas for seating and relaxation. And then on the southwest side, there's a big open lawn, and that's there so that people can have their picnics, but also so that we can have events. And all of the different pathways are designed so that events can really circulate really well, and that tents can be abutted right on those pathways to make it very accessible for everybody that wants to come and visit. We did this project in phases, with the intention that we know that parking is a #1 concern when people visit the village already. So in a previous meeting, we did bring a parking plan for this space at 50525 to the board and to the Planning Commission. And we do have a contractor set up for that. As soon as we finish our final access easement, we'll be able to do that parking lot at 50525 Cherry Hill.
That's the opposite side of the street.
It is
from
just
here.
south of the
Yeah.
Cherry Hill Road. And we want to get that in place before we start any construction on this. So our schedule, should it get approved, would be to bid this fall, and once the parking lot is finished, then we would start the construction on this in 2025, is kind of our goal as far as that, as far as fulfilling not just the project, but our agreement with Wayne County on when we need to spend the money. So we know a lot of planning has gone into this. It's been very thoughtful, and we didn't want to rush it because we want to make sure we get it right. It does, not in this image, but the pathways go north of the Human Services Building, and they connect with the Ridge Road sidewalks. And in a different project for Preservation Park, which is just northeast of this, just past Uptown, in Preservation Park, we are adding improvements to the parking area there. So our goal is that there will be parking at 50525 and then also at Preservation Park that would serve as the supplement, because we know that taking away parking is going to be one of the concerns that come up. So we welcome any of the questions that you may have.
I have a question. Since you brought up Preservation Park, and maybe I'm just not seeing it, with the walkways in the village square area, I'll call it, is there a pedestrian crosswalk to connect those sidewalks to the sidewalks in front of Uptown?
At this time, there's not, but the sidewalks do stretch all the way from Preservation south to the intersection at Cherry Hill and Ridge. At this time, we don't.
All the way down to the intersection, huh?
At this time, so far, there's a good potential when the triangle parcel gets developed that we could enter into those conversations, but at this time, without having any of the development there hasn't been a crosswalk proposed.
Is there, the centerpiece, this, how are you doing that? How are you looking at it? I mean, I like the cherry, but I'm just saying, is that something, are you, having artists compete or having some kind of contest? How are you treating that?
We haven't figured that part out yet.
Okay. I'm ahead of myself.
Because we've had a few different ideas thrown around, whether it be a permanent piece or kind of like how Ford Road has a rotating piece. And so we haven't quite figured out exactly how the art's going to be handled.
Will it
but
actually be a hill?
Will it actually be what?
A hill?
Yes.
It will be.
So
Okay.
we have a contractor that's in late October, I believe, is when ILE is starting on the ponds. Yeah. So later this fall, the township, when they finish the lot split for the stormwater pond area, when they dig those out, the spoils of those ponds are going to make the hill. So they're going to preserve those and keep them on site.
And because of the grade change on the site, it'll be a little more unassuming from the road, maybe like 5 feet or so, but from the pond side, it will look pretty substantial. Like, I think it's about 10 feet from that side.
Kids can roll right down.
So, yeah, it'll be fun. Good views. Yeah, we have, thanks Patrick, the rendering for the, from the top of the hill, so you can see there will be a view from the top there.
Very exciting. I like how on the cover sheet, you guys have your area location map that shows like the whole Midwest. Usually for my projects, mine look more like your vicinity map.
Yeah, each group has a different cover standard, and that's our site group, so it's cute.
Yeah, I like that. I noticed that the last time you were here. Wow, okay. Very ambitious.
This is supposed to be a regional attraction, so.
I guess. We're gonna have people from Minnesota coming down to see it, huh? Okay.
Well, they don't go to Mall of America anymore, so they can come here.
Yeah. Oh. Very good. Well, thank you. What do we need to do? We need to make a motion, right? So who wants to do that?
We're going to need the coffee from the last guy.
I am so tired. And I'll go home and I won't be able to sleep, but anyway.
Let's do it. Okay.
All
I
right.
move approve the site plan for the Cherry Hill Village Town Square Park site improvements at 50440 Cherry Hill Road. Tax parcel 071-99-0001-7, 0007-702, and 07199-0002, 0002-707, and 071-99-0002-711. Subject to all the state, county, and township requirements except modifications approved pursuant to section 4.01C6 for the number on site, on-site parking spaces. There you go.
No.
And
There's more.
modifications recommended pursuant to section 2.16B of the zoning ordinance for monument signage.
Support, Madam
All
Chair.
right, everyone supported that. We have a
Yeah, we're
motion.
good.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lee and support by Commissioner Foster. Any further discussion?
Brian, you.
All right, Commissioner Eggenberger. I think Gordy wants to go home. Could you call the vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Cruz. Yes. Commissioner Eggenberger, yes. Commissioner Foster.
Yes.
Commissioner Janowski. Yes. Commissioner Lee.
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
And Chairperson Zuber.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Carries. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for holding out to the whole night. All right, Patrick, next steps for them, they are going to proceed with permitting, looks like.
Yeah, that's correct. They'll proceed with permitting and any bidding or any follow-up things with the board and the administration.
Awesome. Very good.
Patrick, when I look on my calendar, I see another planning commission.
Yes, that's a work session. We're in the second Monday of the month because the first Monday this month is Labor Day, so we kicked our regular meeting back a week. But the third Monday is the work session reserved, and we've got master plan items scheduled.
And will that be at 6 p.m.? Do we so like?
I
Are-
would so like.
Are you available, Gordy? Because I know you were concerned about your schedule, so. Six. Okay, so let's do 6. Just make sure we tell Harpreet.
Yes.
Yes, we
Yeah, me
gotta,
too.
yeah, exactly. I'll send you all a text. Yeah, okay. Anything else? We have miscellaneous staff reports, commission, and liaison comments? None.
None.
Move to adjourn.
Motion,
Second.
all right, we have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Weber and support by everyone. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. Thank you all. See you next week.